Hello everyone, welcome back. I haven't streamed in ever since let me know if you guys can hear me and the volume's good and all that, but I literally haven't streamed ever since May, I believe. So I guess popping back on here is a little makes me a little bit nervous, and I get a little bit of tension. I don't know why. It's every single time that I compose myself and then I put myself out there, it gets me a little jittery. So I do apologize. But today will be a pretty lengthy stream. I try my best to keep things all nice and condensed for y'all, and that's why I write notes ahead of time, but your girl talks a lot, and also because I process a lot of things in my brain, I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to not leave any stone unturned. I like to keep things with a nice tide. I don't like leaving loose ends untied, essentially. So that being said, before I get straight, I froze? Am I good? I froze? Oh no. Let me check this. Give me just a moment. See? It's of course. It's of course. There's gonna be a little bit of technical difficulties here and there. I hate this. Bruh. Okay, give me just a moment. Please check the video resolution. Current resolution. I'm so sorry. See, this is what always happens when... Give me just a minute. Okay. It should be better on YouTube. Okay. Alright, if there's technical difficulties on Twitch and whatnot, it should be better on YouTube. But if not, just, we're just gonna keep going with it, you know, and whatnot. So, give me just a moment. Give me just a moment. Okay. Alright. So, yeah. Anyway, how is everyone doing today? Currently, right now, when I woke up, I had, I don't know why, I had, major, heart... I wouldn't even say it was, heart palpitations, but I felt like my heart was, beating out of my chest. I don't know if anyone has, felt similarly, but, I just woke up this morning and I just felt like my heart was suddenly beating out of my chest. The energy, the vibes today was just really I feel it's very intense. It's just very intense today. Maybe it has something to do with Lionsgate. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the spiritual community and whatnot, but usually 8/8 8/8 is a date for what they call Lionsgate, and it's a pretty important event. I'd say event as in we're going through a portal or whatnot. I have to talk about that in another stream, talking about more psychic medium stuff. But to keep things on topic, hopefully everyone is doing all right. Hopefully everyone is safe out there, because that is definitely, especially nowadays, that's definitely the most important thing. So I like to, you know what, I'm just gonna hop right into the topic at hand. And the topic at hand is dissecting overseas idol culture. So what I'm going to do is basically give an overlay based on my perspective on how everything transpired in the overseas idol community, my experiences, all of that jazz, in this live stream for you guys. So anyone who is either new to the overseas idol community or who just wants a further in-depth scope of how everything kind of came to be, I'd like to at least lay out everything in this video. And I'm going to forewarn everyone that I have a bunch of disclaimers because I'm not the best with delivery. I'm pretty blunt. So, going into my disclaimers, which is a lot. But going into it, actually, let's put the chat up here. So going into my disclaimers, the main purpose of this live stream is to vocalize alternative perspectives and offer clarity on the topic at hand, and which the topic is overseas idol culture and the community itself. For those who do not know, I used to be the CEO of Overseas Idol Collection, which is like, I was like the founder and leader, like the main founder and leader of Overseas Idol Collection. The views and opinions expressed in this live stream do not represent Overseas Idol Collection as a whole. To make things simple and sweet, I'm also going to refer to Overseas Idol Collection as OIC, because I usually just say it like, yeah, I'm talking to OIC, like OIC as in Overseas Idol Collection. And that's why I have a separate YouTube channel talking about this stuff. It's why I don't go on the Overseas Idol Collection YouTube, or I haven't, whenever I'm talking about my own personal experiences and whatnot, like I don't go on to the Overseas Idol Collection social media, or like Discord server, saying like, because it's my separate point of view, I like to keep that separate. So let's just keep that in mind. I think a lot of people have known me as the face of OIC, but that was never my intention for me to be like the face and me like monopolizing the whole Overseas Idol community, which is another thing I'll get into, but I digress. So yes, this is why I have a separate YouTube channel. So let's just like keep things separate. Like if you are going to talk about like the points that I have addressed, keep in mind that I am only speaking on my behalf and my experiences. I am not speaking on behalf of the entire community. I'm only talking about my perspective. It's why I have officially left OIC last year, which means I'm trying my best not to attach myself to OIC or even the cause idol community. Another thing to keep in mind is that it's not OIC says. All because I say something doesn't mean it's OIC says, because one person does not represent the community. Even though I have led the community before, it doesn't mean that I represent the community as a whole. The community is the community. So ever since I solidified this decision, please treat it as if I'm an outsider looking in and I'm going in a different direction. So yeah. Now there are times where I've really considered like, do I even need to like come back to this topic and like talk about it again? Because I'm just like thinking, let me just move on and just not say anything. But personally, I feel like it doesn't hold well as far as like my moral compass goes to just shut myself up and not say anything about everything that I've experienced and whatnot. So yeah. Now I said the disclaimer. If you go into the description box of my YouTube video, I put trigger warnings, I put fair use disclaimers, because we all know that there's going to be people that are going to twist and distort things, alright? So, expanding on this notice, wow, Julian, this is a really long disclaimer. Yeah, sorry about that. Keep in mind that there will be themes and talking points that I have reiterated in the past, though these will be stated in case anyone who is out of the loop can catch up to speed. So if you're like an outsider, you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, I'm going to be reiterating points in my previous video talking about this, which is again in the description. Since this is an in-depth discussion, the live stream will be lengthy. I already said that. I will not water down my information. After the stream, I intend to post timestamps for those who want to digest this in fragments. So feel free to check whenever I do post timestamps. You can go back to the section of the video where I'm talking about that specific thing, and then you can just, form your own opinion from there on out. Whenever I do make any suggestions or recommendations, please take it as just that. Whether or not anyone does adhere to it is entirely upon their own discretion. I am not in control of anyone, nor do I want to. You know, if at any point whatever I'm saying doesn't sit right with you, you're free to click off. That's fine. We're all adults here, you know. I'm not gonna sit here and just say like, oh yeah, you're supposed to do because I said no. I'm not playing these games. I'm just not. All right. So I won't hold it against you. All right, because you also have your own free will. Anyone is free to discuss their points in the comments below, in the YouTube comments, or even in the Twitch stream and whatnot. Though for the sake of energy conservation, I will only respond in the comment. I will only respond to the comments in this live stream in the live chat and any important emails that are directly sent to me. Other than that, you guys are free to talk amongst yourselves in the YouTube comments themselves, but I'm not going to take the time or energy to respond to said things because personally, I'm really drained. I'm just, your homegirl's like really drained about this topic. Yeah. And then finally, just so I don't get distracted, because I kind of tend to get distracted a bit, I will go section by section before responding to comments, just so I keep things on track. All right, we're all good? Yeah, all right. Let me check the comment here. Had to switch on to YouTube, but I'm leaving you on as background while I do stuff. Okay, that is totally all right. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. All right, so starting off the storyline, I'd say I started Overseas Idol Collection with Nyaru, Paida, and also a little bit of like Mondai Society and a little bit of like DJ Riziki Slice, and whatnot. And the reason why we came to make Overseas Idol Collection to begin with is that, like, so before there was anything called an overseas idol, the term that we used beforehand was net idol. I will go more in depth about terminology later, but you know, just to keep adherence to the storyline. So back in like 2017, I wouldn't even say 2017, but like even back in like 2016 or even 2015, when I was in my older idol group, Nova Drop or even Rainbow Bubble, there weren't many people or performers like us that were like doing the things that we're doing. And to define exactly what an overseas idol is, reading the pamphlet that I wrote here, we are an association focused on networking with overseas J-pop or J-pop inspired idols, music producers, and idol fans / ota from all over the world. This includes idols who perform in real life and online alike. Our target demographic is those who support real life idols and net idols. What exactly is an overseas idol? An overseas idol is defined as someone who performs as a J-pop idol does, except they accomplish this outside of Japan, generally in their own home country and or through the internet. This can be done through their own singing, dancing, modeling, and original content creation, etc., etc. So yeah, back then there wasn't like a set, I'd say, network or group that had like all these people together. As far as trying to find performers that were like us, because we're so incredibly niche. Like there's not many people who do the things that we do. So way back then there was a Facebook group that people would go to, but literally the only thing that people did in the Facebook group, and this was like the net idol, like just like a Facebook group just for net idols in general. And people would, you know, they would either have their own separate groups in their own home country, their own hometown, doing their own things, but most likely it's just people who are like soloists who have, you know, their own equipment that they're like working with, and they're just making their own amateur projects online and whatnot. So people would upload them onto YouTube, whatever covers, like J-pop idol covers or even original music. There was like very seldom original music. I mean, like even now, so there's not that much like original music, but I'm starting to see the progression of that. But yeah, so people would promote their stuff in this Net Idols Facebook group, and through just me connecting with people on Facebook, like, I'd just be the type of person where I just love networking with people. Like, I would just, like, talk to anyone. So I just, like, add, like, all these random people on, like, Facebook. And it's, like, I guess, like, it would seem random, but, like, anyone who fell in line with, like, the net idol category, like, I would go into their DMs and I would, like, contact them and be like, wow, I'm doing the same thing in New York City, you know, you're doing this, da-da-da. And that's pretty much how I made friends through Facebook and whatnot. Now, Nyaru and Paida, they found me through Facebook. I was also connected to Peachy Parade and Cherry Wallflower and whatnot. Peachy Parade is based in Atlanta, Georgia. Cherry Wallflower is based in Cherry, well, she moved to Korea. She was in Florida, and she used to have, like, an idol group called Citrus. San was in it. If you don't know who San is, she's a part of Cortesque. So they were a part of that floor. So there was, like, it was so small. There's, like, very, very few, very few people in these communities and whatnot. And then, of course, Paida and Nyaru would be a part of Texas. So Nyaru and also Martha Marie, they were also the organizers of what they would call Texas Idol Festival. And when I saw that this was a thing, this was when I was, like, freshly, like, quitting, like, Nova Drop. This is when I was like, I'm going to be a soloist so I can find my own path and, like, figure out my own stuff. Yeah, because, like, me working in a group, like, I knew it wasn't, like, working out for me. So when I found Texas Idol Festival, I'm like, this is a thing? What? So, I was, like, contacting Nyaru, and I was, like, me and her, we made fast friends. Me and Paida, fast friends. Like, we were just, like, we were just, like, really in sync, and we just, like, we knew what we were doing, kind of. we kind of knew what we were doing when we were, like, organizing. Like, at least we had, like, some sort of vision. We had some sort of vision and direction. Well, Paida's not really much of the person who would be, like, organizing this stuff, but it's more so Nyaru. So, like, me and Nyaru, we would be, like, getting together, like, we would just be bouncing and relaying ideas off each other, be like, what if Overseas Idols did this, before we called it even Overseas Idols? Like, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like, we would just be, like, you know, even when we got together, like, if either Nyaru went all the way to New York City, and we would be, like, in hotel rooms, and we'd be, like, talking, like, we'd just be bouncing ideas off each other. And I just do this with, like, other idols in general, and just bouncing ideas off each other, like, how to expand what an overseas idol is. But anyway, staying on point, you know, so when I started to perform at Texas Idol Festival, when I found out there were more people, more performers like me who were doing this stuff, we just figured, why not come up with a Discord server and just get, like, an actual network going on with this, you know? So, and we had, like, we had, like, a structure of, like, okay, we had to organize it, like, you know, there was, like, this whole entire structure of how we were gonna do it. And the way that we would go about it, now, let me switch over, let me switch over to my video screen here. Not my video screen. Let me switch over to my documents here. So if you check here, we would be sending, like, pamphlets to other people at conventions that we would be a part of and whatnot. And we would just be, like, printing these out, going to our local conventions and just handing these out to people. And, like, whether we had, like, informational panels, like, talking about, like, Japanese pop idols and their culture and whatnot, the main thing that we really wanted to highlight was, like, real Japanese pop culture. Like, we really wanted to educate people on, like, what real Japanese pop idol culture was. And in conjunction with that, we wanted to showcase that, hey, there are people out here who emulate a very similar experience here in America. So if you'd like to check us out, here you go. And it's another reason why we came up with, like, you know, even the term overseas idol, you know, wasn't a thing back then, because back then, again, we would call them net idols or gaijin idol or whatever the heck, you know. So we would just be sending this out. All the public documents are, by the way, are in the YouTube description below. So with that being said, we would also make like what is that? I had like a website, you know, so I paid money. Like when I first started Overseas Idol Collection, I paid money out of my own pockets to have this website running, and we had like a lot of pages up. And I figured like we can't be the only ones, like we can't be the only ones doing this stuff. So that's why I reached out and I made like staff guidelines. And I'm a very organized person. I love having documents. I love having like structure and whatnot. And I just wanted to get like volunteers to help us with whatever projects that we were running. So I would have staff guidelines like this. I would have rules and regulations. Well, this is like mentorship program rules and regulations. We also have like our own rules and regulations in the Discord server and stuff like that, just to make sure that like everything is, again, very neat, organized, what have you. I would create task sheets where we would delegate tasks to different types of, to different staff members. So I'm not the one taking on the brunt of everything, or other staff members aren't taking on the brunt of everything. I would even create website instructions where it's like, here, you have your own account on the overseasidolcollection.com website. If you can help us create posts and whatnot, here's some instructions on how to use WordPress. And I just, just make instructions, like all that. And, even going through all of that, the reason why we needed like staff to help us with this, because it's just like, even though we're a niche community, I still want to showcase like all of us. We had our own Overseas Idol database, which spreadsheet is here. This is not in the public documents, but I just wanted to show you. It's kind of similar. It's a little bit similar to how the 4chan boards have their own Overseas Idol database, but we wanted to like handpick, select people who we believe were part of our niche. Like they fell in adherence to what we would define as an overseas idol and whatnot. Even right here, I wish the website is down. This is like my backup file. Val has the other backup file. I wish I had the actual like thingamabob, but we would have an idol database, and this would showcase the idols that we would select. And there would be requirements. There would be like qualifications where it's like you have to meet like a certain quality standard in order to be accepted into the idol database, because keep in mind, it says our idol database is used as a portfolio for conventions and event organizers. That way, if they are searching for talent to book, they can look through whoever is local or who's the right fit for their convention/event. It can also be used for the public to discover idols that they haven't heard of before, right? We'd also go further in depth in the FAQ. I'll elaborate more later on this point in general, of like who falls in line with what an overseas idol stands for, and then who doesn't fall in line with what an overseas idol stand for, just to, again, just keep everything organized and like neat and whatnot. So yeah, we would have an overseas idol database, and they would be like different waves and different, I would say, generations of like overseas idols throughout the years of like what they were doing and whatnot. Like this stuff started like all the way early 2000s. Like if you guys know like Becky Cruel or Kimono Time, well, I wouldn't really consider like Kimono Time, because what is that? She doesn't really sing as much, but like Becky Cruel and whatnot. Kiki Hime, who else is on this list? Natalia Natchan or Pinky, Melancholia. Like these would be like first wave overseas idols right here that we would have like in our idol database. There was a lot more here, but I separated it into these things. And then I would fall under the guise of like second wave overseas idol, and this would be the start of like people who started around like 2013 and then going forward. So you would have like Martha Marie, me, Ice Cream, Honey Hime, Cherry, you know, what have you. Then there's third wave. You would have Alex Pinku, you would have Cure, you would have Kurohime, Pastel. Oh my gosh, I miss Pastel. Like, I'm getting a little nostalgic. But, yeah, you would have third wave. And then now, currently, I'd say we are in the fourth wave of what we would consider the generation of, like, overseas idols and stuff like that. Obviously, it's not complete because I've quit, so I can't really continue typing typing all that, because it's a lot. It's a lot to, like, keep in mind, like, okay, like, who's who, like, there's just, like, even though we're a niche, it's a niche that is, like, not interconnected. It's not interconnected in a way because we're talking about a global scale here, right? Because we're talking about a global scale of, like, all these different idols and performers and whatnot, it's kind of hard to, like, pinpoint, or like, I wouldn't say pinpoint, but it's kind of hard to, like, you would have to, like, sift through a lot of, like, social media handles just to be like, oh, this person qualifies as this, you know? And then again, me being the type of person who likes to network, like, I would go through profile, and just contact them directly and be like, hey, do you want to join this? Because it started off with, like, a few hundred people. Now it's gotten up to, like, about 500, over 500 people in the Facebook group and whatnot, and even, like, the Discord server, so that there's a lot. We would even want to have, we tried to have, like, a resource database where, like, people can go on the website and be like, hey, I need help with audio mixing, and then it's like, here, you can go to this person, and these people who are in the resource database are people who are at least somewhat knowledgeable about J-pop idols and, like, how they work, or at least, like, understand, like, what they're catering for, like, what idols are looking for as far as, like, getting people to help them with services and whatnot. Like, obviously the spreadsheet is very sparse, but it would be like, we would have a separate spreadsheet for musicians, artists who would do work. Oh, this is so sparse. Photography, videography, not much here. Seamstresses, like, it's like, you know, it's like, it's just, like, thinking about, like, all these ideas that I had in my brain, and then, like, not fully coming into, like, fruition is a little, I wouldn't say a little, it's a little, not a little, very underwhelming, sort of say. So yeah, but I think that's, like, the overall gist of, like, how things would go. And, like, even transitioning into, like, 2018, when we had the Discord server, we would try to have events, and we would try to, you know, engage with the community and, like, talk to people. Like, we would, like, make memes and stuff like that, like, you know, memes about, like, our overseas idol mascot or whatever, like, just to keep some sort of community engagement and stuff like that, because usually, again, people who go into these net idol Facebook groups and whatnot, literally all they do is that they promote their group and then they leave. Like, there's not much discussion, and I'm just like, we could have, like, a little more engagement and, like, start building together, you know? So, like, it's understandable if people want to go and they want to promote their own stuff individually, and that's totally fine, you know? But the main thing that we really wanted to keep in mind is that, like, again, just overall community engagement, like, talking with one another, getting to know each other, getting to really get a feel of, like, one another, and not just being like, okay, I'm, like, here to watch your performance and then I'm just gonna dip out, you know? Like, actually, like, really understand one another. Like, that's what I really wanted to build, was, like, authentic, genuine connection with other people, and, like, mutual building. Like, we were built together. All right, so that being said, this is when 2019 hit, and 2019 I was working on my other idol group, Ambiflora, at the time. And with Ambiflora and everything, I already talked about my story in my previous YouTube live stream when it came to Ambiflora, so all of the details are disclosed there. It was very inactive around 2019. And this was due to a lot of bullying and peer pressure that was happening behind the scenes. Now, I know that, you know, people are like, hey, Julian, you shouldn't name drop, but no, I'm going to name drop because I think it's really important that it's like the more that we stay silent about people who have been causing issues in our community, like your silence is complicity. And that means that it's okay to kind of just let people like walk by and just like do whatever. So I'd say like specifically the catalyst for this, and I wouldn't say like she is like the main problem, because I had like a lot of issues with like other people in the overseas idol community and whatnot, but you know what, I'll get more into the details later because like I wrote down more notes, but essentially like why am I getting flabbergasted? Julian, relax. Getting flabbergasted. Let's just say that 2019 sucked. It was horrible. It was horrible overall. All right? Because imagine trying to build something like over and over and over again, and then like it's like you're building like these blocks, right? And then things just come in and then they just knock it all down, and it's like, great. Well, what is all this about, you know? So, and even I felt extremely overwhelmed because I was doing the brunt of the work, you know? And I tried like so many times. And I'm trying not to make it about me because it's not just like only about me, but I'd say like a handful of people who would try to come in, right? And even staff, right? Staff, like the very small staff that we had that were trying to build things in the overseas idol community, right? They had their own personal obligations and things got a little too busy for them. But as far as like work goes, the distribution of work was like very unequal, you know? It like, and I tried to consolidate tasks, and I try not to overwhelm people and be like, hey, you know, if you're too busy and you can't do this, it's totally fine, you know? And when it comes to having a community, not even a community, but a group in general, right? When it comes to group work and team ethic, I say everyone is a team player. Everyone has to be a team player, you know? And when you have people who don't take initiative or don't put in the effort, or even just half-hearted effort, it becomes very stale and very stagnant, and like we can't build things, you know, like nothing is able to progress naturally that way. So, you know, tried building things in 2019 and things were like really dead, really quiet. So I'm just like, okay, fine. You know, I'll step back and I won't do anything. And I think at that point, I think the concern that was addressed to me was that like, I think people were more so concerned that I might have appeared as like, I think they were more so afraid of like corruption. And I'd say corruption in a sense is like me having like a monopoly over the whole entire overseas idol community. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's completely understandable. Fine. So what I did was I suggested the idea to Val and Yaru, and I said, how about when it comes to running overseas idol collection, can we have this as a triumvirate? And they're like, yeah. So basically, if I have to make any decisions, I go to them. And usually whenever I make decisions, I always talk to other people first before I go, because I'm kind of an impulsive person. But I'd always go to them and I'd be like, okay, let's have a 2/3 vote, you know, because we run things as a triumvirate. 2/3 vote before we go through with any decisions, and I try to make sure that, you know, everything has like a checks and balances system just to prevent that. Nyaru had other things, and she had her stuff going on. Val had her stuff going on. I got my stuff going on. So it's just like 2019, and then leading into 2020 was just... I mean, 2020, like, we did have our first overseas idol con, which was pretty good, but still behind the scenes, like, as far as the distribution of work, it was still unequal, you know? I tried coming back to rebuild, like, and I tried to address problems. Now, again, I understand that my delivery is not the best. The times where I did address problems, I was pretty reactive because behind the scenes, I was dealing with a lot of stuff. And again, it's not an excuse for the way that I've handled things, but I wanted to be like, hey, this is a problem, we need to address this. And I'm just the type of person where it's like, I like to resolve things. If I don't talk about it, I don't feel like anything's gonna happen, you know? So I'm like, can we address this? Can we fix this? And then nothing happened. It was like, a few people were saying things, but for the most part, most of the community was like radio silence, bystanders, not saying much of anything. And the people who were like really loud and combative were like at the forefront of it, and it kind of just put a wrench in like whatever progress that we were making. And I was getting so burnt out and like overwhelmed by all of it, so that's why I left. You know, now 2021, I think, and again, this is my suggestion, just a recommendation as far as like other people who are involved in the community. I really think it's very important for people to switch their focus into healing the community dynamic. And what I mean by that is that when I first developed this, I looked at all these idols through a rose-tinted glasses, because like I had this vision. I'm like thinking, wow, this is great. We have like all these people who have similar goals and similar dreams that we can work together, collaborate and just do like all these things. But to my lack of, I'd say my lack of understanding, I understand that we are all very different. You know, we are all and there's nothing wrong with that, but we all have different goals and we all have different things that I'd say even morally that we don't really align with and we don't really click with. I didn't mean to cough sarcastically. There was actually something caught in my throat, but like there were just things that just really didn't align with us, you know. And I think even the lack of maturity, you know, and I'm also gonna take accountability for what I've done and how I contributed to this dynamic. Lack of maturity, lack of understanding, lack of just, I'd say, overall communication with everything that transpired. Because again, I tried to initiate communication and be like, hey, can we talk about da da da, and it just like all the drama just kind of got out of hand, you know. So yeah, that's the storyline. The Overseas Idol collection. That's the real realio dealio. Now, let me go to the comments and let me read before I go into the next section. Let's see. High-based idol networking is hard. Yeah, networking is really hard. Like, and I think the issue, I guess, when it comes to networking, is that I'm a very empathetic person. So when I connect with people, I really try to connect with people on a very deep level, and I try to understand the full scope of everything. And because of that, it makes me absorb a lot of stuff that I just shouldn't be absorbing in the first place. So due to my own weak boundaries, it was hard for me it's hard for me to even understand or draw a line or be like, okay, this is healthy or this is not healthy. Like, this is functional and this is dysfunctional. Like, that was still something that I was like still learning to overcome while I was networking with like all of these people. Now I've gotten to the point where I have like really, really solid boundaries, and I'm like, if you're ever gonna talk to me, you're gonna email me. I'm not gonna accept any DMs and whatnot, because I don't have the time or patience to just deal with that. Like, I want to keep things professional. And that was overall my main disposition when it came to things, is that like I am just the type of person where I like to be very serious and very professional and very focused whenever I have to be. You know, and of course I do fool around. Everyone fools around and whatnot, but like whenever I have like anything that I'm aspiring to, I try to put my laser focus to my goals, to my dreams, and trying to make sure that I have a tangible way, a practical way of going about it. And that's why organization and structure is extremely important to me. And not even just organization and structure, but just group cohesion. Like, that is the most important thing to me. It's also another thing, because I've failed a lot. especially when it comes to being a leader. When it comes to being a leader, you're gonna have, or even just doing anything in general, you're going to be failing a lot. And I think it's learning from those failures and like falling on your ass several times. It's a very it hurts, but I'd say it's a very humbling experience. You know, should anyone have to go through any excessive pain or trauma to learn? Of course not. Absolutely not. All right. And I even say, like, the things that has happened are pretty unfair, I guess, in my point of view. But without further ado, I'm going to actually get into responding to a video that talks about overseas idols in general. It's another reason why it prompted me to make this live stream, because when I first saw this video, I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes about, and let's see how she talks about overseas idols and stuff like that. And then during you'll see my reaction. This is my second reaction to it, because I already watched it before. But during my first reaction of it, the first half I agreed with. The second half, I apologize. Actually, no, I'm not gonna apologize. It was, no. It was just, no. So, this and also the things that were, like, written on the 4chan boards is what, and I tried to, like, I'd say, like, after last year, I stopped paying attention to the boards, but, for some reason, I was, like, guided to, like, look at the boards again. I'm like, okay, I haven't seen this in a while, let's just, like, see what's going on. And, like, people start to catch on with, like, what I was talking about, and what I'm like, okay, like, yeah, finally you get what I'm saying. You know. And also those who do not who do not know what boards I'm talking about, like, I'm talking about 4chan boards, I'm talking about CGL, I'm talking about lolcow. Why are you going on the boards and looking at, just ignore them? No, I'm not gonna ignore, because I'm just the type of person where it's like, people have a voice, they have concerns, they have something to say. And I think it's important to look through every scope of everything and really, like, understand everything of everything, you know? And I guess the problem when it comes to the community in general, and this is not even just, like, coincided with the community in general, you could say any community has this, right? But, like, people on the boards would say things more honestly than they would in the actual Discord servers or even in front of my face, you know? And I'm just like, this fakeness, ugh, I'm sorry, I can't deal with it, because it's like I don't, and I know I used to be, like, kind of like two-faced too and whatnot, because we're all trying to find our place, we're all trying to find our way to kind of, like, fit in to whatever, like, group or, like, community and whatnot. Like, it's part of our human innate nature. I'll go more in depth about that later, but overall, what I'm saying here is that community, I'd say communicating in an honest manner was something that I didn't get as much, and it was very difficult for me to decipher, like, which was which. Like, imagine, like, having, like, all these voices, trying to accommodate to all of that, right? And then also trying to come up with, like, a structured vision of, like, okay, let's do da 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 da, and, like, getting that all together. It's you know, and I'm trying not to be so reactive, but I'm just, I can't what is that? They are wild. It is the most honest place, but also one of the worst places. Yeah, I know. And usually when I do go on the boards, I promise you, pinky promise you, because I'm a very blunt and upfront person. A lot of people don't like that about me, but that's okay. To each their own. I talk on there. I'd actually engage with them, and I'd be like, I'd like to know your point of view. You know? I'm actually really intrigued. Like, why do you think this way? I'm just a very inquisitive person. So, I would do it anonymously. I'd go on there, and I'd be like, okay, what do you think about, like, can you please give me feedback? Like, I'd always ask, like, can you please give me feedback? Can you please give me feedback? I realized later down along the lines, as far as this narcissistic matrix paradigm that we're in, is that no matter what, no matter how civil you come off to people, people are gonna find a way to find conflict because they benefit off said conflict. Yeah. Anyway, so let's just get straight into the video, and I will react to it. All right? So, here we go. Now, this video, the title is, hold on, let me just move this. What are overseas idols and so what? And if I scroll down just a bit, it's from Alex Pinku. You can check out her video there, and I also linked it in the description box below. All right, so without further ado, let's just get right into it.
Hello, I'm Alex Pinku, and I wanted to create a series.
Oh wait, is this delayed? Let me try this again.
I wanted to create a series of videos all about overseas idols. What are they? How do I become one?
It's delayed. All right, let me try this one more time. Trying to, let's refresh-a-roo, shall we? All right. Here we go. Okay, there
Hello, I'm Alex Pinku, and I wanted to create a series of videos all about overseas idols. What are they? How do I become one? Resources for them, and overall just educate about the community. As a disclaimer, I'm not an authority on the community in any way, nor do I speak for the entire community. I am simply speaking out of a place of experience within the few years that I've been a part of. Intent is to educate and spark conversation. So if you disagree with anything that I say in this video, I want to hear it. Let's talk about it. By the way, I am also reading off of a script because I had certain points that I want to make sure that I hit in this video. So if you see me reading, know that it's for the best. Per the Net Idol Wiki, which I'm not sure how up to date it is, this is the definition that they give. Inspired by Japanese idols, net idols, also referred to as overseas idols, are performers outside of Japan who aim to capture and demonstrate the unique phenomenon of Japanese idol culture in their home region or even online. That's a good...
Yeah, that's a very similar description to what I had here in this pamphlet. Overseas idols defined as someone who performs as a J-pop... Well, I already read that. Let's continue.
Definition, but I would like to propose an even higher level one. Overseas idol. A performer who sings or dances in the genre of mostly, but not limited to, Japanese pop-influenced music and takes inspiration from the culture surrounding it. I think both these definitions help paint the larger picture of what we're going for here. Now, something that's important to realize is that this term and this community are really only a few years old at this point. There have been people all over the world pursuing idol activities for years, but it's only within the past few that there have been events, tags, terms, etc., specifically surrounding this community of people outside of Japan who want to perform in a similar way that Japanese idols do. I'll get into the blending of other Asian pop cultures later on, like K-pop and C-pop, because they definitely have a role to play in all of this. Within this term of overseas idols, there are categories. But before we even get into what those categories seem to be at this point, why is it even important to separate into categories? I want to stress that this isn't to put people into boxes or to lift one category or label above another, but it's to help people who have similar goals and niches find each other. Think of it like Lolita fashion. While a sweet Lolita and a gothic Lolita are both equally Lolitas, they have different needs, they have different goals, their resources are different, and their endgames are different. So it helps to pull these folks together into different terms so that they can help find each other and lift each other up. That's the whole thing. But the lines can very easily be blurred and are very blurred in both examples. You don't have to be one or the other. It's possible to identify with multiple or to move between the different. Even in Japan, the term idol means a lot of things. For example, Penta, who is a popular Autonomy dancer who I definitely recommend checking out, to my knowledge, has not promoted any singing content, at least not primarily so. However, she takes a lot of inspiration from idol culture in her performances, things like pen lights, checkies, Voda chants, etc. I don't know if she personally identifies with the term idol, but there are other creators who produce the same type of content that she does online to the same caliber, but don't identify with the term idol or pull in those things into their performances.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop for just a moment. as far as, because she's talking about what is that, different types of idol performers. Now, in my last video, I wrote like a list of different types of idol performers. And again, I have all my sources linked down below, so you can go check them out right there. But before we can even talk about an overseas idol, we need to understand what a Japanese pop idol is, right? And because if we don't understand where the culture is coming from, what the culture is, how are we going to take inspiration from their culture? Because it could very well draw a very blurry line between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. All right, so without further ado, I've listed down types of idol performers. I know that Alex Pinku briefly touched upon like talking about K-pop and C-pop, but for the sake of sticking to the box and whatnot, she said something before saying like, oh, I'm not trying to, let me go back to the video actually. She said something about like, oh, I'm not trying to like put people in categories or labels, but the thing is that categories and labels, I personally think, is essential. You know, without having categories or labels to distinguish yourself from another, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for someone to understand what you're going for, like what your goal is, what your mission is, and what your intent is. And that's why personally I like labels. All because you're labeling you're labeled as something doesn't really mean anything or whatnot. So going to the Wikipedia, let's go Japanese idol. And again, there's more references as far as like understanding what a Japanese idol is, right? So overall, a Japanese idol from the Wikipedia.org. Oh, Wikipedia is not a credible source. I'm not using just Wikipedia. There's more references in my description. But basically, from here in the Wikipedia in this Wikipedia article, basically, an idol, idoru, is a type of entertainer marketed for image attractiveness and personality in Japanese pop culture. Idols are primarily singers with training in acting, dancing, and modeling. Idols are commercialized through merchandise, and endorsements by talent agencies, while maintaining a parasocial relationship with a passionate consumer fan base. Japan's idol industry first emerged in the 1960s and became prominent in the 1970s and 1980s due to television. During the 1980s, regarded as the golden age of idols, idols drew in commercial interest and began appearing in commercials and television dramas. As more niche markets began to appear in the late 2000s and early 2010s, it led to a significant growth in the industry as the idol warring period. Today, over 10,000 teenage girls in Japan are idols. I'm sure that number has since grown since the editing of this Wikipedia article, with over 3,000 groups active. Japan's idol industry has been used as a model for other pop idol industries such as K-pop. And then there's subcategories such as gravure idols, junior idols, net idols, voice actors, Keep in mind that this net idols definition on Wikipedia is not really as much in coherence. Obviously, this is like internet celebrity, but if someone's talking about a net idol, right, it's not necessarily like in. I love how it's like. See, I love how net idol like it instantly like goes to internet celebrity. It doesn't fall in coherence to this, right? What is this? I know that there's a Japanese like Wikipedia article about net idoru, and it's not similar. As someone made a Wikipedia article like just net idol, and even the definition of like net idol, they tried to add in like overseas idol term. I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but anyway, yeah. So that is basically what a Japanese pop idol is, right? Now the difference between that and then a K-pop idol and an American pop idol is that when you think of American pop idol or American Idol, you think of the show American Idol, right? So, you know, it's usually a lot, I'd say, a lot of idol singers in the West are mostly soloists, and they're very, very skilled as far as like artist level. The difference between a Japanese idol and a Japanese artist is that an idol is like the egg. It's like an incubator to become an artist. And they're of course, like the agencies and the people behind them that are like working for them are like professional, and they put them out to market them. The idols themselves are, I'd say, essentially in training mode. The difference between that and like a K-pop idol, right, is that a K-pop idol takes like 10 years training behind the scenes. And this is they usually do this at like younger ages. So the K-pop idol is like trained almost like 10 years. I don't know if they're trained 10 years, but they're trained several years beforehand. And then they enter into, I'd say, 10-year contracts and whatnot to become like a K-pop idol. And they're a lot more polished and professional in comparison to a Japanese pop idol. Like Korean pop idols, as far as their performing standards go, are a lot higher than a Japanese idol. Japanese idols try to market more on that cuteness, and then their overall, what they say in this article, the parasocial relationship to the audience. You know, it's that bond, it's that connection to the audience, and that feeling that they get from just having fun and, you know, experiencing joy is more important to a Japanese pop idol than a K-pop idol. And then as far as an American idol goes, American idols, or even Western pop idols don't have, like, they're usually the types where it's a lot more of like, I build things on my own. I made like a whole like chart about this. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but American idols don't really dance in the same way as like Japanese pop idols and like K-pop idols. They do on stage, but they're not really known for that same like idleness as American pop singers and whatnot. You know, I hope that makes sense as far as drawing the distinction, but I'm going to make like a separate video talking about all that. I don't want to get too in depth about that, but going back to, I'd say, what is that? Terminology, right? You have different types of idol performers, right? You have seiyuu idols, you have virtual idols and whatnot. I'm gonna let her talk a little bit more, and then I'm going to expand on what she said in this video. So
another example, Kyary Pamyu Pamyu is a very popular music artist who kind of embodies a similar aura that you think of when you think of idol, all things kawaii, etc. But she does not identify with the term, and in fact has gotten upset in the past when people refer to her as idol. I've gotten in discussions too about whether Perfume are idols or not, when they do all of the same things that we list that idols do, and they don't identify with the term anymore, but they definitely started as idols. So where did that shift happen? It's a lot of gray area. It's confusing. Honestly, I find the term idol to be more of a descriptor of the type of performance and culture rather than a strict descriptor of the types of things that you make. It also is a self-identifier. If you identify as an idol and you do these similar things, I think you're an idol. If you don't want to be associated with that term, even if you do all the same things, I think that's okay too, though music performance of some kind is at the core. I personally don't think you have to sing to be an idol, or that you have to dance.
that's where I say no. Sorry. I shouldn't have been so react. Oh my god. Julian, you need to calm down. Take that troll level down a notch. Alright. Sorry. I really don't mean to be rude when I say this, but when she said, I don't think you should necessarily sing to be an idol, that is where I'm sorry, you're wrong. I'd say you are just flat out wrong. Sorry about that. I understand that when it comes to being an idol and whatnot, like, you know, you don't have to necessarily be the best singer, but as far as what I believe an idol is not, and I wrote this down, right? It's basically anyone who does not sing, dance, or lightly dance, and has an image personality altogether. I think it's a trifecta, all right? You have to sing, you have to dance at least a little bit. You don't have to be the best dancer or the best singer, by the way. But overall, I'd say when it comes to being an idol, it's 75% aura personality, 25% music. To say that you don't have to be a singer to be an idol, I personally think that's a huge insult. You want to know why I say that that's an insult? Now, this may be the boomer in me or whatnot, but it's like, I think it's like, take into consideration idols from the 1980s, right? Even in that Wikipedia article that I just pointed out, when it comes to idols in the 1980s, is that was the golden age of idols. I feel like during the 1980s, that's kind of where the J-pop idols have like solidified their term, you know? And J-pop idols back then, they were known for their voice. I'd say personally, this is not even like a personal stance. It's more like objectively. Their vocals are a lot better, more of quality in comparison to the current idols that we have nowadays. Nowadays, because of the warring age of idols, there's a high oversaturation of idols in the Japanese pop market, because basically anyone, even their own grandma, can be an idol in Japan, right? And due to that oversaturation of Japanese pop idols, right? I think it's not that I think, objectively, these are facts. It started when AKB48 started marketing handshake events and like having that, again, parasocial relationship. I mean, they did kind of have that with like Onyanko Club, but overall, it's when they started marketing idols as like a product, that's when they stopped caring about, I'd say, the quality of like the vocals and whatnot, or even like the dancing. Like, they could just get by with just minimal effort as far as like dancing and singing goes and whatnot. But overall, to say that if you're not singing and you're not an idol, I don't know where you got that information from. I don't agree. I just simply don't agree. And again, I'm not basing this off of like, oh yeah, this is my opinion. No, I'm literally taking off of the information that is presented to me off of what Japanese pop idols do. You must have to have those three factors: singing, dancing, and image slash personality all together. That I'd say is like the key elements of all that. Yeah. So let's go back into the video.
During your performances, if you're singing, the opinion varies a lot though throughout the community, and that's okay. You don't need to act a certain way or look a certain way or dress a certain way in order to be an idol. It's a descriptor of the culture rather than the things that you do, in my opinion.
All right, so I think while I do understand where she's coming from, is like, you don't have to like act a certain way or like be a certain way or like whatever. I don't know if there was like a little bit of like a text blurb here. Hold on. No, there wasn't. Now, here's what I think, as far as being an idol goes. I think anyone has the chance to succeed as an idol, but I don't think just anyone can be an idol. All right? Now, you can call it gatekeeping or whatnot, but I personally don't think gatekeeping is a bad thing. Now, before I even talk about, like, as far as quality control goes and whatnot, and gatekeeping, I want to go into my expansive list of, like, idol performers and whatnot. So, again, going back to this point, seiyuu idols, virtual idols, cosplay idols. And when I mean cosplay idols, right, they have to be, like, original idols only, right? Like, it has their own OC, their own original music. They're both singing and dancing to their own stuff. People in Japan also call this a 2.5D idol, where, let's take, for example, like Lily Angels, right? Where they have their own, like, OC, or they have their own, like, anime idol that they cosplay as, and they perform as that. That is not to be confused with an idol cosplayer or cosplayer. I think people, like, mix up the terms. I know she didn't, like, mention, like, cosplay there, but I'm going to mention it here. The cosplay community, that's where the whole shitstorm happened with the whole overseas idol community and whatnot. It's when cosplayers, and these are cosplayers, they do not sing. They don't sing at all. And they are taking licensed characters, mind you, that are not even their own, and they call themselves idols on either their TikTok profiles or their Instagram profiles, and they use the hashtag netidol hashtag. They start off using this in the hashtag, like, netidol hashtag, right? And it's not even just, like, cosplayers, but also, like, idol role players, right? You have people who want to make original music and kind of treat it as, like, an underground music scene. They want to not only make original music, but even if they don't make original music, but just sing and dance and do covers to it, versus people who just cosplay and roleplay. I think there's a very huge distinction between those things, and I personally don't think that those lines should be blurred whatsoever, right? Now, when it comes to cosplayers in general, and whatnot, the friction that came with this is that I've tried to understand what a cosplayer is, or get involved with that. Personally, I'm just not the type of person who is into cosplaying or whatnot. I don't really cosplay as much, and when I used to, it's just very seldomly. But I worked with cosplayers, and I once, I don't know if I invited them or they just invited themselves or whatnot, whatever happened. When they start to join into the community, they're like, "Ooh, this is a new thing. Let me see new thing." So when the cosplayers start to get in, right, and we were trying to educate them on, like, actual legitimate Japanese pop idol culture, right? I think it was, like, more so like a Western culture shock to them, right? Because I wanted to understand, why do cosplayers, or why do people in the anime idol community are into the stuff that they're into, and not like, I wouldn't say not like, but not want to understand, like, Japanese pop idols. And I think the main issue here was ego. Like, the main coinciding thing, I mean, like, there's ego everywhere, but the main element here when it comes to these blurring of lines and whatnot is ego. And when you have people who have a cosplayer or fandom mindset, and they put it into a community setting where there's a bunch of performers and whatnot, that's a recipe for disaster, right? Am I saying there's anything wrong with cosplayers? Of course not. Am I saying that there's anything wrong with role players? Of course not. But people, I believe, should call it like it is, because it's very misleading to those who are trying to look at idols and whatnot. So yeah. Now, as far as overseas idols go, the previous terms that I stated before is that there used to be net idols, and there used to be gaijin idols. All right, gaijin idols are foreign people who would go all the way to Japan, and they would pursue idol activities that way, right? Net idols are more so people who would do it globally and only stick to online stuff. Overseas idols, I believe, no, it's not even I believe. When I first coined this term, it was a very strict definition. Very, very strict definition of incoherence of what I stated previously. Now, there's odorite, or dancer, right? And people use the hashtag odotemita. If you don't know what that means, it means I tried to dance. And usually back when they had Nico Nico Doga in Japan and whatnot, dancers would use this tag. Like amateur dancers, they would use this tag, odotemita, I tried to dance. So they would tag it as such, right? People who would sing would also do the same thing, but with singing, they would call themselves an utaete, which is utatamita, like I tried to sing. Or you would call yourself a singer/vocalist. Again, I think there's very, precise terms to use for these kinds of things, and I can understand the gray area and how the lines are blurred and whatnot. That's why, trying to make sure we understand our own definitions, like how we define like what an idol is, what they do, to make sure we don't mix in with the wrong crowd, and other people are free to join. That's totally fine, right? But keep in mind that they are joining used to be mine, our world, and if they're joining our world, I think it is mandatory for people to educate themselves on legitimate, actual Japanese pop idol culture. So then that way, again, we don't fall into the lines of, cultural appropriation and whatnot. So yeah, let me read the comment here, just a bit. It reminds me a comment I just saw today on Facebook, but regarding Love Live, then Love Live idols have less complex choreographies than regular J-pop idols. Yes, I can attest to that because I've done Love Live covers before. Even if idols are in their peak in Japan, the rest of the world in the J-idol boom slowed a lot. Zoomers prefer K-pop, and from Gen Z, the only ones interested on J-pop idols are cosplayers and anime fans of series like Love Live. Yeah. To expand on what you talked about as far as like Love Live idols and whatnot, as far as Seiyu goes, right? Now, when it comes to Muse and whatnot, Muse or Aqua, right? These are voice actresses. These are Seiyu. I also think there's I have to stop using the word think because these are facts. Seiyus are different from actual legitimate, like, I wouldn't say legitimate because they're both idols in a sense, right? But Seiyu idols are different from J-pop idols because Seiyus are only focused on like voice acting, and that's why their choreography is like very, very light, right? They're getting paid to perform as a character. Now the difference with that is that actual J-pop idols, they are living the actual Japanese pop idol experience. And if you've seen documentaries or videos of girls behind the scenes doing their own idol shtick, I'd even say more so chica idols because they have like less funding going towards them, they be crying in the back, breaking down, like they would have like all these like struggles with like, and that's not to say that Seiyu idols don't have that, of course not, but what I'm saying is that like Japanese pop idols, like it's a lot harder for I'd say for them to build because it's like they're living the actual Japanese pop idol experience, especially chica idols where they don't have much funding and they don't have, because like again the market is very extremely oversaturated. Imagine trying to climb this whole ladder, climb this whole pyramid of trying to get some sort of promotion or get some sort of recognition. Most Japanese pop idols that are in Japan that try to put themselves out there, they don't hit mainstream as much. Like that is like your golden ticket. That is like you're very lucky to do so. They only last for like, I'd say like a few years or so, and then they die off, and then they go off and do other things. They either continue being an idol like in a different continue being an idol in like different groups, or they just go off and just fade into obscurity and just go back to their normal lives and whatnot. So but yeah, but overall, the main point that I want to drive here, and I wrote this down, is that overseas idols, the overseas idols term wasn't meant to be, actually, I'll respond in the video that she's going over. Let me continue playing this for just a minute.
In my opinion. Now, the original intent of these terms at their inception, in my opinion, is irrelevant, much like everything in English.
No. No, it's not irrelevant. But okay.
Terms are defined by the culture that uses them, and that definition can change over time. And
yes, okay. So, while I do understand that definitions do change over time, maybe this is a conservative point of view. I don't know. But I still think that people should follow in adherence. If you're going to change something, it's like, if it's broke, don't fix it kind of thing. You know? If you're gonna change something, do it because you have a legitimate reason to. I think people just want to change and tamper things because it fits their own ego narrative and not because it benefits like the collective as a whole. Like it takes away, it strips away that whole big picture thinking. Like you're not thinking about the overall big picture as a whole. And when I started making this, the terminology of overseas idols, I had a vision in mind. And I tried to take into consideration everyone who was falling in adherence to said thing, you know, and that was at least my role and my responsibility as a leader. So in order to make sure that, you know, we get the recognition that we need, not even the recognition, but also the understanding of who we are, this is why I think it's not irrelevant and it's very important to be clear cut with who we are and what we stand for, our values, and what have you. So
I believe that it has. But here's what I've seen happen. The term overseas idol is an umbrella term.
No.
I'm like moving over here so that I can put text over here.
Not.
Within this umbrella, there have been the following main subgenres. Net idol. Performers who primarily create content and perform either as themselves or as a stage persona not associated with.
Now, if you go to the original Wikipedia article of Net Idol and the Japanese one, I'm not talking about the English one. I mean, let's go on. Hold on. You know what? Let me look this up. Let's see if this is gonna show up. Why is it not showing up? Is this... Maybe I can Google it? Here you go. Now, when I ran through... This changed! Huh? What? This changed! I'm trying to read this. My Japanese is so bad. Okay. Talking about net idols, is this... There was an article here. What? Wikipedia? Did they remove it? Or is this a wrong one? Okay. I'm like, wait a ding dang dong minute. Now, there was a translated article of this, like, and it wasn't translated properly. But when it comes to this article in general, as far as the Japanese Wikipedia article of this, right? Net idols started off as simply just internet persona. Like, they would take their idol activities and they would put it online. I think it says somewhere along here, I have to Google translate all this, but it does say, like, somewhere along here, like, you know, people would use Ustream or Nico Nico Doga to promote their own, like, idol activities, but, like, strictly online. They wouldn't really do it out in the open and whatnot. Like, as you can see, the idols here that she's listed, Galaxy Girl, Paida, Melancholia, and Oracle, all three of them, they do online stuff, but it's not strictly online. It's, they do online activities, but what they like to do more is, like, more in live performances. And I think when it comes to being a net idol, at least as far as my understanding of it, this could be different across the board, is that a net idol, I'd say a Western net idol, only focuses, their main focus is only online promotion and online content creation, and they don't really do much outside of online stuff. They would only adhere to net idol stuff. So yeah.
any existing IP. V-idol, performers who primarily perform and create content with a virtual avatar. Pretty self-explanatory. Basically a VTuber, but that also does idol stuff. Cos idol, yeah. Performers who primarily perform and create content cosplaying characters.
Now, I already talked about the distinction between a cosplay idol, an idol cosplayer, and a cosplay idol. There's a difference here, alright? So the two that she's listed here, Love Notes and Project Infinite, these two are cosplayers. And the reason why I say that these are idol cosplayers, and Project Infinite, they're not even idol cosplayers, they're Vocaloid cosplayers. The reason why I say that is because these are licensed characters that are not their own. They are not their own. And therefore, they are not idols. So, if they were to be a cosplay idol, I think that they would have to do their own original characters, their own original music, like follow their own original thing. Because again, these characters are not their own. They're just simply cosplayers. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just saying like, I'm just a cosplayer and I'm doing it as such. I think the problem is when cosplayers use the idol term and they... Now, I'm not saying that all cosplayers are like this, but there are cosplayers that go around boasting like, yeah, I'm an idol. Yeah, I'm an idol and I do idol activities. But then when you actually see what they're doing, they're just dancing as a cosplayer. It's like, people are only paying attention to the character themselves. They're not really paying attention to you underneath that character, if that makes sense. So there's that.
From existing IP. So like Love Live groups or Idolmaster groups or etc. Now, there's a lot of blending between these. There's groups who are cause idols and net idols. You can be multiple things, right. I think. There are some other subgenres that I have seen, like maid idols, or role-playing idols, etc., that I think are a part of the community that I haven't seen get a ton of traction on, but are really cool, but I think they're super valid. Odorite and utaite definitely have a place within the idol community, as I said, but it's a matter of culture rather than strictly do you dance or sing, and I think of them more as descriptors rather than I'm an Odotemita idol.
Yeah, I think that's a mouthful, saying like, yeah, I'm an Odotemita idol or I'm an Utaite idol. Like, it's like, what? Just say you're an overseas idol, or just say like you're a net idol. Like, I think, again, with the whole blurring of the terms, this is why I say like terminology, at least to me, is very important. Like, structure is very important. So if you're just a dancer, it's okay to just, like, same thing when it comes to cosplayers, right? If you're just a dancer, just say you're a dancer. If you're just a vocalist, just say you're a vocalist. If you don't do the combining three of, like, again, singing, dancing, image, you're not an idol. Simple as that. And again, you can have all three of these things and not even just be an idol, but just be an artist and whatnot. So there's that.
Something I want to make very clear as this community continues to grow, we gain nothing from gatekeeping people out of it. No. We gain a lot actually from gatekeeping. Now this goes into my next point. Before I even go into my next point, sorry, I got a little heated when she said that, right? And again, this is no offense to her per se, but just more so like her points just rubbed me off the wrong way, is that to close off this section of what we define it, because I think I made myself very clear as far as like what an idol is and what it isn't. You know, overseas idols, the term that I coined, by the way, wasn't meant to be an umbrella term, but a very specific term to help those who are doing specific activities to network with each other. Stretching its definition to include everyone takes away the label that niche of the idol community needed to be able to find each other. Point blank, simple as that. All right, so before I go into the next category, as far as talking about quality control and gatekeeping, I'd like to see any other further comments that are here in the live stream. None? Okay. All right, let me just continue. I kind of skipped over I broke all of my notes in like different sections and stuff like that, but like I skipped over the topic of like lack of autonomy and codependency, so I will go back to that after I finish this topic as far as quality control.
You know? So, gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is not a bad thing. And the reason why I say I don't think gatekeeping is a bad thing is because we have rules, right? At least when we started Overseas Idol Collection. When I started making this community, I knew who was problematic from the start, or at least, it's not that I knew, but more of like an intuitive knowing of like, okay, I've seen these, because like I've been at conventions for a long while. I'm like, I've seen these kind of folk. I know how they act. I don't want these people to be mixed in with us. It's also a way to create safety within our own communities. If we're not self-policing each other and we're not holding each other accountable, you know, and we just like let anyone just go through, that is obviously a problem. And honestly, it's like to say that, oh yeah, we shouldn't gatekeep, or like it's very elitist of you to like, what makes you the sole person to qualify, what makes an idol, da da da. It's not about like, oh yeah, what about what I say or whatnot, but it's about, again, my role and my responsibility as a leader. I'm taking into consideration my role and responsibility as a leader, not only when it comes to Overseas Idol Collection, but whenever I'm involved in any type of group project, right? What I'm thinking about is what benefits the collective as a whole. Gatekeeping, again, is not a bad thing. And to think that we should make our spaces very inclusive to just anyone is actually very dangerous in and of itself. Because then that creates leeway for people to abuse that system, which has already happened, by the way. So if people want to call it controlling, right? No. There's a difference between leading versus controlling. I'm going to continue playing her video.
All you do is prevent people from learning more, and you stagnate growth.
No. If people actually want to learn more, if people actually really want to learn more, they would have the willpower to educate themselves. They would take it upon themselves to educate themselves on like what they want to do and whatnot, and they would follow in coherence with the rules. And again, this is probably just me and my conservative view on things, but I think structure is necessary. I think rules are necessary, and I think gatekeeping is necessary, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
You don't consider one of the subcategories that I presented as idols. You're keeping those people from learning more about the community and maybe transitioning to what you consider an idol to be.
See how she's using the phrase "you're keeping," like it's kind of accusatory, like, oh, you're keeping the you're no. If someone has a strict definition, right, of what they want in their own community as far as who they want to allow in, right? It's up to the other person, again, to educate themselves and learn how to follow in compliance with those rules. If they don't agree with those terms, they can very well just make their own community that falls in adherence to what they believe in. It's also kind of like you're bending over backwards of being like, oh, you know what? The community should only adhere to my specific and individual egoic needs rather than what benefits the collective as a whole. Because keep in mind, the people who are on the opposition, very, very few and far between. But the problem with the people who are on the opposing side was that their voices were much louder than those who were actually pursuing, I'd say, legitimate overseas idol terms. Overseas idols goals. And the problem with the community is that because people were too scared to speak up and they were bystanders and they just allowed that to happen, right? Because they didn't want to rock the boat and they just wanted to keep the peace. That's why things stagnated. It's not people who spoke up their point of view and being like, oh, well, I don't like that you da-da-da-da. Because it's like, if you were a cosplayer, right? If you were only just a dancer, if you were only just a singer and you only follow by those terms, right? The way that people would think of these terms is like, oh, well, if I'm not defined as an idol by what you say, it makes it seem like oh, I'm not worthy of love or attention as an idol. Maybe my point is a little far off the mark, but at least that's kind of like the subversive way of like how they're trying to like push that message in, you know? Be like, oh, I'm not included, therefore I'm not included, therefore I'm offended, and I need you to bend over backwards to... Cosplayers already have a community of their own. They already, and in fact, what overseas idols are is a very, very small community. They kind of invaded their space and they imposed their own beliefs onto what was supposed to be, again, a niche. Like, we've had specific goals, we had specific directions, right? And of course, there's always leeway to break into that. But this goes to show that as far as her points of view, and I've seen this last year when I was like talking to her in the Discord server, is that it's very fence walky. Like, of course there's very gray area, but I think you being a fence walker is just allowing the oppressors to just take over. You know, if you don't stand firm on like what your stance is and what you believe in, it's going to make you very susceptible to hive mind mentality. It's going to make you very susceptible to just being like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do whatever to keep the peace and placate, rather than doing something that it's like, let me actually look at this from an objective perspective. Let me actually look at this from like, okay, what's actually going to, what is that? What actually aligns with the mission, you know, with whatever mission. And there was a mission that was in here, you know? So going into that, when people like mix the cosplayer / con-goer mindset with a performer's mindset, keep in mind that me going into this, I started off like, yes, I performed at conventions, but I also had experience going to like venues in New York City and like learning from underground musicians, and also talking to people who have theater backgrounds. If you take that cosplayer fandom mentality into those types of spaces, they're not going to want you in. They're not going to want to allow you in. And to just think that the community is just a coddle space, that's fine. If people want to have it as a coddle space, that's totally fine. But those who actually really do want some sort of safety net, or just want to take things seriously, you could do it for fun, that's totally fine, but let's just talk about safety here. Like, safety, point blank, right? If you just let people's like egos like trample all over another, how is that even a community? You wouldn't even call that a community. Like, the community turned into a fandom. It turned into a fandom where the only people who cared about the community are the people who are in said community. It's not people who are outside, like outsiders who are looking at your stuff, right? They're gonna look at it and they're going like, because as a performer, at least when it comes to performers in general, you are marketing yourself to the crowd. And as you're marketing yourself to the crowd, you are providing a service to the audience members. And your job as a performer is to be clear on your mission, to be clear on what I wouldn't say even what you stand for, but what you're trying to how you're trying to express yourself and put yourself out there into the world, right? So if an outsider starts looking in and they start seeing like all this mumbo jumbo, and people are not even like looking at it professionally, right? It's too much drama and whatnot. What makes you think that anyone is going to care? What makes you think that anyone is going to even like look at us and even want to provide us with opportunities and so forth, you know? And I think it takes this is something that you can definitely research on your own, as far as like I guess a sociological standpoint, is that it only takes one person to demoralize a group. It literally takes one. If people aren't moving in unison, and that's not to say that people can't have differences. People can definitely have differences, right? But if you have like one dysfunctional person who tries to throw in the wrench when it comes to like actual like progress, like healthy progress, that's how the structure of everything, that's how everything crumbles. you know? I can understand the importance of community and how it ties in with our innate nature to connect and form tribes. You know? And sometimes people who feel like they're excluded from the group, or people who feel like they're excluded from the community, they feel like, oh, I'm not included, so da-da-da-da. But guess what? We've tried to include you. We've tried to. But we still wanted to stay firm on our boundaries and what we define as an idol and stuff like that. That's when people start to get distracted from the drama. They got distracted from the drama, and they missed the main focus of the community at hand. You know? So there's that.
Later, not that they have to be, but if your goal is to grow the community, you don't want to keep people out of it. You want to
Okay, she wrote down, no, it's not gatekeeping when we're talking about leaving out folks who are considered a danger to those who are in it for whatever reason, abusers, etc. And what would you define abuse? Now, take into consideration, there is an abuser in the overseas idol community who is running Starlight Idol Festival, Kazu, by the way, and this is public information now. If you don't know who Kuri Cosplay is, you can check her out on Instagram and whatnot, but she has put herself out there to say she has been gaslit and abused by Kazu. I don't know if Washu Takahashi or like Poppy falls in line, but basically, the people who were in charge of the Idols a la carte cosplay, mind you, cosplay group, right? You just allowed an abuser in. And guess what happened? You also submitted to their will, and because, sorry, Alex Pinku, I'm just going to say that you're a fence walker. You're a fence walker because it's just like you allowed their opinion of what they believe, you know, an overseas idol, and like keep in mind their motive, right? Keep in mind their motive and their direction on what they're doing. They were trying to demoralize and point fingers at me and throw all these accusations, be like, oh, you're controlling, da-da-da. Guess what abusers do? They take all of the baggage that they have and they project it onto other people. And when I was dealing with that experience back in 2020, when I was like talking to her, I literally, sorry, trigger warning, I literally wanted to kill myself. She reminded me of an abuser. I even told Val and the staff, like, and I'm not the only person who has experienced this, by the way. All right? There have been multiple people who have experienced abuse from Kazu in Overseas Idol Collection, right? I've talked to Val and I told her, like, look, do you see what she's doing here? This is problematic. Right? I saw the signs ahead of time. Back when she started up bullshit in 2019, and then again when she started bullshit in 2020. Right? And barely anyone said anything about it. There are people who agreed with her point because it's like, oh, you know, oh, poor defenseless person, let me like coddle and baby you, da 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 da, right? But you're not taking into account people who have actually been abused, people who have actually been in harm's way because of her controlling behavior. So if you really think about it, who's the controlling person in this scenario? All right? That's why I really think it's important for people to do their research on covert emotional abuse. And I understand that it's very difficult to see the signs ahead of time or even see it right in front of your face, but I think it's very clear now and very apparent, you know, who was actually in this because they had true passion and dedication and even willpower to care for people in the community versus people who are just in it for their own gain. And I think that distinction should be made very, very clear. If not very, very clear, I think people should really start putting their foot down a little, even more. I think we've become way too soft. Way too soft where people are, again, too scared to speak up and say their truth. No, say it. Just name drop people. You know, maybe, you know what? Maybe don't name drop people, but at least speak out about your experiences. I think people should be brave enough to speak up about their experiences because this affects them too. You know? People want to go in and they think like, oh wow, I'm really inspired by overseas idols. This is so much fun and whatnot. And then when they start knowing how these people start acting behind the scenes and how bad they really are, and all that they were putting on is face and all that they're putting on is fakeness, do you know how very disillusioned people could get from that? It makes it really hard for me to trust people. Not even me, but just overall, it makes it very hard for people to trust or even think that that someone is credible in the first place. You know? So,
to keep people out of it. You want to continue to welcome people and educate them. It is okay.
Yeah. And guess what? It's not always. You know what? This ties into my next point. Right? Representation. Actually, wait. Let me continue this video and then I'll go into what she's saying.
Okay for people to misrepresent the community that you're a part of.
No. Are you basically implying that it's okay to misconstrue information and delegitimize facts? Is that what you're saying? Let me rewind that one more time.
To misrepresent the community and educate them. It is okay for people to misrepresent the community that you're a part of.
That was a really small text blurb. Hold on.
The community that you're a part of.
Okay. All right. Also, who gets to dictate what misrepresentation is, aside from being unprofessional / rude to staff at events and such, right? We do. And not even just like we do, right? Because we, right? Majority of the people in the overseas idol community fell silent and they didn't speak up and they didn't hold true to their values and they didn't say anything. And that was a problem. That was a problem. To say that, you know, like, representation doesn't matter. Representation really matters. And as far as educating people, be like, oh yeah, you know, we should educate people and stuff like that. Do you know how draining it is to try to educate people and try to be like, hey, these are the facts, like this is what happens, da 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 da, right? And then people get too triggered by the information that you're giving them because it distorts their fantasy narrative that they're playing out in their head, being like, oh, I just want to be pretend idol, versus people who actually really want to be legitimate performers, right? It creates this sort of cognitive dissonance, and when they have that cognitive dissonance of their perspective being challenged because of a disagreement on their personal stance of what they adhere to as far as what they aligned with and their goal, right? What they're going to do is, again, they're going to abuse and they're going to point fingers at us or point fingers at me, sort of say, and be like, oh, you're the controlling one, da 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 da. You're not being inclusive to my mat. No, they weren't being inclusive to us. We are the minority here. And this is why I say representation matters, right? So when I founded Overseas Idol Collection, I took into consideration performers from a global scale, not just those who are residing in America. All right? You know, and note that I'm providing reference to my experiences, referring, and I'm using my Northeast American perspective. There's people in different states act very differently in where they live in, and that's totally understandable, but keep in mind that this was a global community. And because it was a global community, you're dealing with people from all different types of cultures, races, genders, etc. Right? Kazu is a privileged white person. And from what you see of people in the currently in the overseas idol community, right? You drove out, I wouldn't say you, not you, Alex, but like I'd say like she has drove out that representation of people of color. And it's not people of color's responsibility. We are so drained. Sorry, just talking as an Asian American, You know, I'm not Japanese, right? But I am Filipino, and my mom has a musical background. You know, her family background worked with Japanese musicians and whatnot. So it is my responsibility, and also the performer's responsibility, to start learning about the culture. We can educate them as much as we possibly could, and that's totally fine. But sometimes people who don't have the same privileges and who are from a different racial background, they're so tired of trying to explain their cultural differences to other people. Like, how many times do we have to be on a record loop over and over and over saying, like, this is a cultural difference? You're looking at this from a Western perspective. We're trying to show you this is their perspective in Asia, right? Let's take another example as far as cultural differences in different places, right? When I was in Canada, during my first international performance in Canada versus being in America, the atmosphere and the people and the way that they connected was so different in comparison to when I traveled abroad to different states. And even in different states, people had different personalities and whatnot. But I'd say and I'm talking about like Quebec, Canada, right? When I was in Canada, their friendliness, I feel, was a lot more authentic and genuine in comparison to American friendliness here. I think American friendliness is just very for show. We are a very individualistic type of country. It also ties in with like our whole capitalistic like mindset and how where it's like, yeah, you gotta follow the American dream or the illusion of the American dream. At least that's what they want to market and present to other people. And I've always felt that cliquiness behavior, that two-faced behavior from Americans in comparison when I come to Canada. And of course, not to say that they don't have this in Canada either. Of course they do, right? But I actually, the connection that I had with them, it didn't feel like, untrustworthy. It didn't feel like, they actually felt warm. You know, there are times where people put on this facade, either online or in real life, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm an idol and I do da-da-da-da, only because they care about clout, only because they care about their image, and that's it. They only care about the image. They don't care about actually truly bonding with people, you know? And when I started making Overseas Idol Collection, connecting with all these people, I started very excited and inspired to learn about all these different cultures and whatnot. And again, it should be up to the person and their initiative to educate themselves on different cultures and whatnot. But, you know, people and circumstances like tested my patience with all that. And I'd say mostly white privileged people have really tested my patience as far as that. As far as trying to, you know, educate people and whatnot. So, and these are also people who, like, when I asked the question initially, you know, define what you mean by doing it for fun, right? It's okay if people get into it for fun, but I really do think that there should be a distinction between hobbyists, people who are doing it seriously versus hobbyists, you know? When you have people who are doing it, like, you know, as like a hobby and stuff like that, it should not be like drawing out the people who are doing this seriously, right? And due to the fact that we are a niche, keep in mind that those who are white, they are able to get performance spaces because they're pushy towards con staff. And that's something that you already like addressed there when you wrote and whatnot. People who are usually able to, I wouldn't say usually, but people who were able to get those stage spaces, right? Imagine if someone was polite and cordial and they would go up to different convention staff and they would like try to talk. At least it's my experience. There's other people who have experienced similar where they try to be like, hey, I want to get this going and whatnot. And they'll be like, no, I don't care. And they only care about like, okay, let's care only about the cosplayers and whatnot because this is the only thing that is, it's mainstream. It's making us money and whatnot. And when the cosplayers just start to drive in their their entitlement to our niche community, we are not responsible for bending over backwards for them. Especially when we are the types of people where it's like we're not even like fighting to get them off stage. They can have their own space, but we want our own space. We want our own space to create what we want, to collaborate, and to showcase our work. If people want to do it as a hobby, that's totally fine. Take it to the hallways, or even do it in a small panel room and stuff like that. But people who really want to show their stuff, I'd say, as far as the talent goes and the hard work and dedication that people put into these performances, they should also have the opportunity to put themselves on main stage. You know? And I think that has to be earned. That's not something that should be handed out like participation trophies and whatnot. Like, that should be earned. There should be a standard for that. So I'll go more into like standards later on, but let me continue playing her video.
It's always going to happen. It's okay for people not to be good at it as well.
No.
You can't control that. Even if you try to, it's not going to stop it. It's always going to happen. The only thing you can do is provide education and resources and hope for the best.
Okay, well, I mean, yes, it's okay for people to not be good at it. Okay, that was a little bit quick of me, right? To say that it's okay for people to not be good at it, right? But it goes back to my previous point, which I've argued and reiterated like several times, just pushing mediocrity. If that's the standard that you guys want to go for, that's totally fine, but that's not giving representation to people who want to take it seriously. And I'd say, if you are doing idol activities for, let's say, about a year, like, it's okay. Like, it's understandable. I started off cringe. If you look at my old performances, like, ugh, you know, like, I was pretty cringy back then and whatnot. But if you start out cringe and you haven't made any sort of improvement in a year or so, I don't know. This is why the idol database existed, because I wanted to showcase people who would actually put in the effort and be like, yeah, like, I really want to be like a good performer. Because again, keep in mind the thing that I said, where it's like the performer is giving a service to the audience members. They're giving a service to the audience members, and whatnot. Oh, I also wrote down another thing, is that equality feels like oppression when you're accustomed to privilege. I forgot to mention that point and whatnot. Like, it's just, I feel like it's kind of disheartening to say, like, okay, you know, like, I think, I don't know if this is what you were implying, but it kind of seems like, oh, I think it's okay for people who are mediocre to have the same opportunities and the same standing as those who have been doing this for years, those who are a lot more experienced with it, those who are, and it's not even about like how many years that you've been putting into it, but I'd say overall your quality of work, right? The quality of work that you're putting out. I don't think that's fair. I think that's just like, it's an insult. It's an insult to people who do want to work hard. Am I saying that those who aren't good shouldn't have a space to express themselves? No, of course not. But again, if they're doing it just for fun and they're just a hobbyist, or if they're, you know, they're just starting out, give them smaller opportunities. Don't give them main stage. There's many time and time again where I've gone to masquerades or I've just gone to main stage performances, and I've seen people where it's like half-assed, half-hearted work. And it makes me question, like, who allowed these people in? Check the people. I'd say, as far as my recommendation goes, check the credentials of the people who are running these events, right? And I this is something that I also suggested in the Discord community too. It's like, start trying to get people who are more knowledgeable and who are more experienced, who have a professional background in performing arts, and get them to supervise some of these shows, or get them to, you know, at least give their expertise, you know? So then that way, people who are of quality can be on stage, and the audience members that are going there and looking at them, like, they actually, like, really enjoy it, instead of just being like, what am I looking at? You know? Like, and again, you know, I'm not denying people their coddle space. Like, that's something that I can't control. But again, it's like they're really, I think at this point, like, I already reiterated the point, but let me see if there's any other points that I wanted to go into and whatnot. Let me continue playing this.
Okay, cool. So you want to do idle activities. Now what? I hope is that in this series of videos I can touch on some of the cornerstones of being a performer, especially in the overseas idol space. From equipment to brand building to set lists, I want to touch on it all. I do not know the answer to all of these questions, but I want to bring in other performers and people who are super experienced and collaborate and just be a source of information. I want to show how positive and welcoming this community actually is.
Right. Now, going to this point, I'm gonna have to cut you off there. Before I talk about, like, her wanting to go into her point as far as wanting to showcase how she sees overseas idols and stuff like that, I'm gonna continue reading the comments and whatnot. Let me see. Speak up about abuse. Staying silent allows it to continue and creates more victims. Exactly. And again, like I shit you not. I'm gonna go more further into abuse, but like I shit you not. I've experienced hallucinations and panic attacks, like suicidal ideation because of people in this community. And this is not even just limited to cosplayers, but also overseas idols as well. Like, and I'd say, like, because of their bystander, you know, and them not speaking up and not taking a firm stance, like, you're just putting victims in harm's way. Since it's niche, how are cons supposed to know or build a standard? I don't know how that works, so I'm asking from ignorance mostly. It's okay. Okay, it's being answered. Never mind. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I got to that late. How are cons supposed to know or build a standard? Take inspiration from professionals who actually legitimately understand performing arts. Introduce them into those spaces, because there are people there at convention. They go to these conventions too. You know, seek out those people. Right? Seek out the people who actually know what they're doing. They have experience. Either they have experience in, like, a theater background, they studied this stuff, or they're even part of the music industry. Seek out those people. If we seek out those people, right, and get them to supervise, like, amateur activities, I feel like that would be, like, really great incentive to build. I'd also say it's very great incentive to build. This is something that Val wanted to do as well. Like, she wanted to introduce, like, people from the Autonomy community. Well, that was already, like, started. Like, she wanted to introduce, like, people from the Autonomy community. She also wanted to introduce, people from the Untitled community, like, Untitled community, right? I wouldn't say, like, bring them into their spaces as in, like, you know, blend it, but ask them, like, how are you able to, like, get, you know, videography done, and, like, you know, your dance videos done the way that you do, or, like, were you able to get, like, audio mixing done and stuff like that? Like, kind of blend the resources that they have. Learn from them. Learn from people who are more successful. Bring it to our space and build up off of that. At least that was my that was our intention. All right. So okay. Now, this goes into, let me see. Did I skipped, I keep skipping over, like, my notes and whatnot. Let me continue with her video.
Because it is. There's so many wonderful people and welcoming this community actually is. Because it is.
Hold on, sorry.
These questions, but I want to bring in other performers and people who are super experienced and collaborate and just be a source of information.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to go off tangent. Now, it's been, I don't know how long the stream has been going. It's been 2 hours. You know, I'm gonna see if I can wrap everything up in the next hour, because I know that this is pretty long. This is very lengthy, but the next thing that I want to go into is terrible music and cringe performances, which is already something that I lightly touched upon, but I want to elaborate even further as far as my stance goes and as far as my points goes, right? Like, we all understand all across the board, as far as, like, overseas idols go, we all understand that if initially someone starts out, they're not going to be good right away. It's only natural for those who are starting. And even like idols in Japan, like they aren't really the best as far as like their singing and dancing goes. Like that's completely understandable. But then this goes back to my point where it's like, if you've been doing this for about a year and you haven't improved in that year, I feel like a fire should be lit under your ass. That's just me. But I've seen overseas idols in this community. They've been doing this for so long. And then you look at their performances and I'm just like, they haven't improved, and they haven't improved, and it's very cringe, you know. And to say like, oh no, you shouldn't call people cringe and stuff like that, like, you cannot stop people from making judgments about you if you're performing, right? If someone is performing and they think that something is cringe, it's cringe. And maybe that was my fault last year when I was like putting up like actual examples of being like, hey, you know, like there are people like, my delivery was off, right? And I'm going to apologize on my harsh delivery. I'm going to apologize on that. But what I won't apologize is the main point that I was trying to bring out when it came to bringing up examples, is that I'm asking you guys, do you really want these performers to represent the community? And even though if they're not really a representation of the community, it's like, do you want people to like go up and look up overseas idols, and then the first few things that they look up is just cringe? That's why I feel like the bar should be raised and the standard should be raised, you know? And if people can't catch up, that's fine. That's really all on them. And it's not even just the sake of like, oh, let's have a competitive mindset just so we can like clash heads and butt heads. No. I mean competitive in a good, I mean like competitive in a good, not even competitive, but, you know, striving for mutual growth, in a good sense, where it's like they're actually inspired, like they have the drive to want to get better and up their quality of their work, you know, up the quality of their work ethic. I think people who are just not as good, I mean, like, of course, they're naturally just going to fall to the wayside and fall into obscurity. That's totally fine, right? But again, the thing that I really wanted to stray away from, and this is something that I kept in mind when it came to having like the hashtag overseas idol, is that it's a distinction from role players, not even just role players or cosplayers, but people who are doing it and they're trying, like you actually like they're actually trying, you know. Like, keep in mind that most overseas idols, they don't go through training. They like, this is all DIY. This is all DIY because we lack resources, we lack funding. You know, this is all done on our own volition. Like, we have to be our own managers. We have to be our own, like, networkers. We have to be our own promoters. We have to be our own editors. On top of singing, dancing, keeping up our personality, and then also, you know, having our own outfits and whatnot. It's a lot. It is a lot. You know, and people invest a lot of time, energy, and money into that. And wasting resources to those who put in the effort, like, it's like, I don't mean to make this about me and all that, because it's not really about me. I know that there are like other people that have this issue, but it's like, I think, imagine the amount of effort that I put into organizing Overseas Idol Collection, not even just Overseas Idol Collection, but my group projects in general. Like, imagine the amount of like time, dedication, effort, money. Like, I didn't have to go through all that. I didn't have to. I could have just like let people, like, you know, market, like not market. I could have just let people like have their own like Net Idol Facebook group, and like, you know, people can like make their own Discord servers and stuff like that. But I did it because I cared about community. You know? I cared about seeing the bigger picture. I didn't care. What is that? It's why I put so much energy into it. And when you see that, like, someone is putting so much of their heart and soul into their projects, it's extremely disheartening and even soul crushing that, you know, they would let these small, I wouldn't even say petty things, but like, you know, these problems in comparison, like, get away from, again, the overall goal of what we're trying to aim for as far as being an overseas idol, right? So, again, I don't know. I wrote down here that, you know, there are some people that can pick up music naturally. There are some people that need to study music theory before applying themselves. I think no matter what way that you learn things, what matters at the end is the result. If the end product is good and you're showcasing that to other people, that is what should matter that is overall what should matter at the end of the day. You know, people, I wrote down here, while people should be given a platform to showcase their work, they need to understand that out in the real world, the stuff works in stages. Yeah, I think I already talked about, like, in other music scenes and even people in theater backgrounds, it's like there's a pecking order, you know? You have to earn your way there. You're not easily handed something, all right? And I wrote down, get off scot-free in convention spaces, but I'm predicting it now. It's not going to be a tiny baby community for long. More people will eventually look at you and judge you whether or not it's worth their time. Let's take into comparison the K-pop fandom. You know, I'd say people in the K-pop fandom is extremely, like, even more harsh. They're a lot more harsh than people in the overseas idol community. Let's just put it up blank, right? Some people don't want to be seen as, like, weebs, like, you know? Why would we want to push for that? Excuses like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I only rushed this, teehee. I hate that. Okay, the reason why I mention this is that there are idols out there that would go up on stage and be like, yeah, I rushed this, I only worked on, like, I barely practiced this, I barely put in the effort. Why should you have a stage, then? Why are you on stage? I could give examples, but I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and let people expose themselves and whatnot. But it's like... It's like, yeah, I did a half-assed job. I rushed this. Therefore, I'm going to put myself out. It's like... Why are you there? Like, if an audience member goes up, looks at your stuff, right? They go up and they look at your stuff. They're going to be like, oh, God. They're going to walk out the door. You know? What you should care about is retaining, like, having that audience retention, having them focused on you and being like, wow, what a great performance. I can tell that you've really done your best and you really worked hard for this. Even if you came off a little bit cringy, even if your voice shakes, even if your dance moves, you know, kind of falter, you can tell there is a difference as far as, you know, someone who has half-assed a job versus someone who's actually putting the time, effort, energy to really make sure that it looks really good and polished. All right? There will always be people who do this for fun, but the community of people doing this seriously is small and overshadowed by the quote-unquote for fun community and constantly edged out of performance spaces. How can we grow if we're being passed over for people who aren't in this with a growth mindset? Why should we just sit down and be silent when cosplay idols get stages just by merely existing, while original idols have to go through hell just to be seen and acknowledged? I'm going to give an example, right? My friend Ayumi, Little Pastel Idol on Instagram, right? She is a triple threat performer. So she does acting, singing, dancing. She has a theater background, right? She moved all the way to Puerto Rico to follow her dreams as a performer here in New York City, all right? Whether it would be like in theater or not, but she saw being an overseas idol as an outlet for that. Now imagine me seeing her behind the scenes, like I talk to her all the time. Me seeing her behind the scenes put so much dedication and effort. She has really great vocals, all right? Her dancing is pretty good too, but it's like she has that trifecta, right? Now imagine someone like her. Let's say Katsucon 2020. Imagine someone like her. Only 5 people in the audience. Everyone else was waiting for Masquerade at the door. And Masquerade didn't even start yet. Imagine how disheartening and soul-crushing that is to be like, wow, I came all this way. I paid all this money. Put myself out here, made this costume, and barely anyone showed up. You know? And what even hurts... I guess what even hurts on her behalf, and I feel for her, like I really truly do feel for her, is that, you know, she would try her best to promote to other people, and people say like, oh yeah, I definitely go, I definitely want to show my support and solidarity and whatnot, and it's just very little. And of course, like, you know, numbers aren't everything and whatnot, but it's like, would you even say that's fair? How is that fair? Like, someone of her caliber, someone of her talent, is just kind of pushed to the wayside in that experience, kind of pushed to the wayside and be like, no, you know? And now even like, there, people who are doing idol performances and masquerades and stuff like that, there are times where I was at masquerades and I'd be sitting there for hours waiting for a performance and stuff like that. And there's a lot of Love Live cosplayers and stuff like that. I also think there should be a separation, be like, just take all the Love Live cosplayers and put them over there. No, I mean, like, I'm serious. Like, take all the Love Live cosplayers and have them their own separate masquerade. So then the people who are like, you know, cosplayer, I wouldn't say cosplay, but people who are cosplaying from like other animes, they can have their own skits and be like, this is a separate thing. Da, 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 da. Maybe I'll email some conventions and like propose that idea and whatnot. But, you know, at least that's what I think, right? I wrote down, those who have shown both dedication, skill, and overall cohesion should be offered better stages. Those who haven't reached that level of skill or are simply a hobbyist should be given smaller stages or resort to hallway lives. That's typically how most budding overseas idols start. Doing this for fun is valid, but it shouldn't be at the expense of those who want to do this more seriously. Yeah. And this is also me reiterating points. It makes no sense to me to place a mediocre performance on a big stage. That's something I believe that should be earned, not be pushy to grant it. Yeah. That is my point as far as terrible music and cringe performances. Let me read the comment here. Still here. Thank you for being here. I know that there's not many people in this live stream, but the people who are still here, thank you so much for just staying here and just listening to me, because yeah, again, I go on and on and on about this. But anyway, let me continue on with her video and her points.
I want to show how positive and welcoming this community actually is, because it is. There's so many wonderful people and so much great knowledge already out there, so I'm just hoping to collect it all, like Pokemon, little idol Pokemon. For now, what do you like about idols? How can you pull those things into your own content or performances? What can you realistically work on today? These are the questions that I'd ask myself if you're looking for what to do next.
Now, as far as like, you know, pushing the whole, sorry, I had to pause her right there because I thought she was going to go more in depth about like showing how positive and friendly the community is. I'm going to tell you that is personally, I wouldn't even say personally, that is clearly not the reality here. And I'm going to tell you why, right? I'd say falling into deception right away. I'd say it's not only naive, but a very dangerous mindset to walk into any community and assume that they are positive, warm, and friendly. I suggest anyone getting involved into anything that they implement healthy skepticism before they fall into romanticism. I made the mistake of getting caught up with the wrong types of people because I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And because I gave them the benefit of the doubt, that gave them leeway to abuse me and to put me on guilt trips and, you know, just have me go through all these downward spirals because they saw a quality that I had that they lacked. And because of their own jealousy and their own insecurities, they came on, tried to attack me, tried to latch themselves onto me, right? So I'd say paying sole attention to someone's image or niceness will lead you to be easily deceived. I refuse to comply with that type of naivety. It makes someone pay attention to their act and not who they are underneath it all. I'd say the people who are actually genuinely kind and friendly and warm, pretty few and far between. Other people who are in it for their image, of course there's like a good handful of people there and whatnot, and I know that people would say like, oh, you know, the people who are like very mean and abusive stuff, like that's only like a small handful. You can't be necessarily sure of that, you know? Maybe they seem very outspoken, right? But I'd also say it's the people who, again, are bystanders, who don't say anything, who are enablers, who are just as problematic. You not speaking up and not saying anything and just letting them get away with it. Like, I felt absolute betrayal, right? When I was telling people, like, hey, this person is, like, being da-da-da. And then they would be like, oh, don't you think you're being too sensitive about it? Don't you think you're thinking too deeply about it? They would minimize my feelings and my pain. You know, if you run into people like that, where you're literally explaining, like, listen, I'm feeling like da-da-da. Or it's like, I feel like people are like, I can't trust these people whatsoever, and they minimize your experience. That's extremely gaslighting. And I know they're probably saying, like, oh, hey, you know, just give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't mean bad harm. They don't mean bad intention. No, I don't want to even want to go down that route. I already see the red flags ahead of time. I see the red flags ahead of time, and it's like, imagine how alienating it is to be like, hey, this is a problem, and then they'll be like, no, it's not. Or people would just not say anything about it, because again, they don't want to rock the boat. And I get it. It's tough because people don't want to speak out their truth because they don't want to cause problems, but you're causing problems just not saying anything. All right. I even wrote down this normalizes the minimization of those who are actually oppressed and invalidates those who have truly struggled. And it's the community's job to build it's the community's job to build a safety net with one another. Like, we should all be self-policing each other. Point blank. All right? The next category that I want to go to as far as this goes ties in with the lack of autonomy and codependency. Now, keep in mind, the people who want to cause a ruckus, right, and cause drama because their fragile ego got triggered, ego got triggered by the truth, right? They dismantled authority. Therefore, there's a lack of structure and cohesion. The time where I've recommended alternative solutions, such as seeking those who are more experienced, performing arts, who oversee our work, the times where I've tried making amends with these types of people will not care because, again, they benefit off of conflict. They will not care about forming a community. They only care about their own needs. And they will cover it under the guise of being like, oh yeah, I'm speaking out for the people who are opposed in the community, where they're not really the ones who are being opposed here, you know. So, and the issue with that is that they always kept blaming they always kept pointing the finger at me and being like, oh well, Julie didn't do this, Julie didn't do that, and that puts like a lot of pressure on me. You know, and this is a common pattern that I've experienced as far as like working with any type of group, is that people would put like a lot of pressure on, and I wouldn't say that all group dynamics are like this, but people would put like a lot of pressure on the leader. You know, I had to do the bulk of the work because no one else was doing it, right? But it's like, it's not only just the leader's job to do things, because my job is only limited to being like, okay, I have a vision, I have a structure, and my job is to enforce rules, maintain boundaries, and make sure that, like, we're creating community here, right? And also to solve problems within said community, right? A leader is not a leader without their group members, period. And if their group members are falling off the wayside and not doing, I guess, like, not doing their civil duty as a community member, you know, you can't just scapegoat and place all the blame on staff for not being able to do things. You know, like, there are people on the board, I don't know who wrote this on the boards, but someone's like, oh, now that there's no leader, what do we do now? Figure it out yourself. Like, sorry that sounds like really rude of me, but it's just like, you have to stop looking for a leader and take initiative. Take matters into your own hands. You don't need anyone else but yourself to lead. You have your own green light too. Like, you have your own free will. You can't, like, we can't always depend on just a few select people to do the work. People collectively have to put in their own dues, you know? They have to put in their own effort. If you want a community, everyone has to work for the community. Everyone, every single person. It's not just in adherence to just a few select people. You know? another thing that I want to say is that I really want to emphasize, like, after this live stream, like, I don't think I have, like, any, I don't really think I have any incentives to even go back to this whole overseas idol topic because, you know, I'm already, like, yeeting away from it, like, I'm trying to, is that stop going on the board. I'm not saying stop going on the board, but stop voicing your opinion on the boards. I mean, like, yes, you can voice your opinion on the boards, and you know what? I can't even control people who are, like, going on the boards and, like, typing out their comments and stuff like that. That's totally fine. Right? But I'd say stop solely relying on anonymity to provide critical feedback towards other people. I want people, ideally, if this ever's gonna happen, ideally, I want people to just come out into the light and be brave enough to tell their stories, be brave enough to share their experiences out in the open with other people. You know, it's very nerve-wracking at first, and I can understand the amount of anxiety that goes into it. I understand the amount of anxiety it took me to be strong enough to even speak out about my experiences and the abuse that I've dealt with, right? It takes a lot out of someone because you're afraid of the backlash or what other people would say, but you cannot allow fear to hold you back from speaking your truth, period. It's going to feel, like, really weird at first, like, putting your foot in that shoe, but you just kind of have to. That is, if you care. If not, then whatever, by all means, right? Now, what is that? Another question that I want to talk about is, like, a lot of people are like, all talk, no action, so I want you to enlighten me. I wouldn't even say enlighten me, but more of an introspective question towards yourself is, like, what do you believe is a tangible incentive for potential participants to join the community? Really think about it. Really think about it and really consider, again, how you want to present yourself, what kind of image you want to put out into there. If your image is based off of falsities and not based off of anything intrinsically genuine, you know, I think that's also something to take into consideration as well. Like, really take that into consideration. So there's that. Let me see if she has anything else to say before I address the closing topics, because I know that I spoke a lot about this.
We're looking on tags on Instagram, on Twitter, or here on YouTube. You can look at the Net Idol Wiki as well to find some creators to get started with. You can look at the Chocolate Idol Network as well. Start commenting and interacting with them. It may seem scary at first, especially because idols tend to put on this very polished front, but you'll find that everyone is super appreciative of the interaction and fostering the community. And you may make a few new friends out of it. Remember,
see, I wouldn't say everyone is, okay, I mean, like, everyone likes the little ego boost that they get and whatnot, but let's put this into perspective, though. Let's look at the reality of how the overseas idol community is right now. We are very, very, very divided. And this is something that I already pointed out beforehand, but I'm going to say it again. We are very, very, very divided. And I understand that people have their own separate goals and they have their own, like, separate pathways and stuff like that. But nowadays, when I see, like, overseas idol collection, not only there's tumbleweeds and it's dead, but a good, I'd say, like, the forefronts, the faces that are in the overseas idol communities are, you know, predominantly, I wouldn't even say predominantly white, but, like, good chunk of white people, because because of the whole Kazu situation and whatnot. And again, it's not even, and you know what, I'm not even placing full blame on just Kazu herself. Like, there are people in these communities that do these things behind the scenes that I had to deal with. Like, I would pull them off to the side and I would speak to them behind the scenes, you know. This is stuff that is not seen overtly as far as, like, abuse goes and whatnot, and even division within communities. Kurohime brought up a pretty solid point to me when it came to Chocolate Idol Network, where it's like, black people were not getting enough the recognition that they wanted to whenever they did promote an overseas idol collection, and that's why they made their own separate community, you know, which is totally great, because it's like, I mean, like, it's bad in a sense that they weren't able to get the recognition and representation that they deserve as far as their hard work goes. But I think it's also a good thing that they came up with the idea of like making a separate community as far as like showcasing Black idols and, you know, just putting a platform out there and being like, hey, we exist, right? Overseas Idol Collection was supposed to be a thing, again, where it's supposed to be a global community that takes into consideration people from all walks of life, not just people who are entitled white folk who live in the middle of suburbia and what have you, because unfortunately that is from what I've seen, the demographic of who I'd say is representing the forefront of the overseas idol community. Now, there are people in Peru, there are people in the Philippines, there are people in Italy, there are people from all different countries and all different walks of life that are part of Overseas Idol Collection. And what I think people should strive for is bridging the gap between those cultures and really starting to understand each other. You know? Educating people is definitely important, but I'd also say don't just rely on other people to teach you. Go out into the world, explore, learn for yourself, do your own research, you know? It's, again, it's very draining, it's very tiring, especially, like, me talking about this topic, like, how many times, like, I'm always, like, talking about this topic is, like, I'm tired, we are so tired, we are so tired of, like, talking about the same points, like, we know what the truth is, now, it's time to actually put it into action. All right. And don't just be like, oh yeah, we're doing da da da. No. Like, see it. I want to see the proof. I want to see the proof in the pudding. Like, you know. If not, then again, whatever. Let me continue.
At the end of the day, and this is true for everybody, not just overseas idols, creators are people. They're just other humans. We are all flailing and pretending like we're knowing what we're talking about when we have really no idea what we're doing.
No, I think, okay, maybe to a certain extent, but I'd say that, you know, people who have more experience and who are knowledgeable about these things, they actually do know what they're talking about. Now, take into consideration, would you learn from someone who actually has, like, real, tangible, practical experience? Or would you actually learn from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about and they're just screaming out of their ass? Like, I get it. There are some things out there that people don't know about, but there are people out there that have their own success stories. We learn from those who have actually succeeded and those who actually legitimately know what they're talking about. And this is not even just, like, limited to, like, overseas idols, because, again, we're niche. Look at real performers. Look at real musicians. Pay attention to them. Follow by their example. Let them be your inspiration. So then that way, you can also attract people who are outside of the overseas idol niche to look at you guys. At least that's what I think. No, it's not even what I think. It's what I know.
An attempt to connect with other human beings. Not to say that I don't understand the intimidation, because I definitely do, but I have to remind myself, like, these are just people. They're just people who also don't know what's going on, just trying to find their place in the world. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this helped clear things up if you're a little bit lost in all of this, which is very understandable. I'll provide some other resources below as I can find them, other people who have made similar content if I can find it, and let's all figure it out together, yeah? Thanks so much for watching. I will see you soon from the stars in the sky. I'm Alex Pinku. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of our video and whatnot. I guess, like, oh my god, sorry, I had to do that. Other people in the comments can let me know what you thought about, like, my points and her points and whatnot, because again, she did bring up some pretty valid points, but I still think, like, I think as far as her perspective goes, like, and this, no offense to her at all, like, you know, I hold no resentment or, like, nothing bad and whatnot. I still think it's, like, it's only looking at things from surface level. It's not really digging deep into it. And I'm just the type of person where it's like, I really want to, like, dig deep. So finally, to wrap everything up, bullying, right? I already touched a bit about bullying, and whatnot, but I want to read off my points here. I I should have made this disclaimer ahead of time, but like, do not go and attack people because if I'm like name dropping them, it's like that's obviously not the point. I like to trust that people are sensible enough to not do that. I mean, like, just I don't condone it. Just don't attack these people, you know? I already talked about bystander effect, being on the fence. I already talked about spreading false rumors and slander and whatnot. This is very prevalent, not only on the boards, but this is also very prevalent behind the scenes, or like even on site at these conventions. All right. Now, to touch a little bit about my own personal experience as far as like dealing with like cliquey people, or like just people who have bullied me, this traces all the way back to the dance community that I used to be a part of. Now, in Northeast America, we had like a dance community, right? And it was called what is that? Like, the dance group that I was part of was called Costar Dance. There was another dance group that was a part of this there was other dance groups that were a part of this, which was Dansu Topansu, which is the group that Alex is in. And then there's also like Full Spectrum Kai, who is also like a part of these dance groups. Now, these dance groups, we were just people who were inspired by the Nico Nico Doga Odotomita community, and we would take a boombox, we would put it in, we would slap it down the hallways, and we would just start dancing to Vocaloid and J-pop music. Later on, it became a point where K-pop people would start to join in and like dance to these music and stuff like that. And of course, like with any type of drama, any type of community, there's going to be like beef like here and there and whatnot. But I want to enlighten you that the whole thing where I was where I'm just the type of person where I'm a whistleblower, right? It's just kind of in my innate nature to just call things out. Not many people like the things that I say because it rubs people off the wrong way and triggers people, you know? What happened with me in this dance in these dance communities was that I spoke up and I called out something that I thought was off, right? I said like, hey, this is not okay, you know? And anytime someone who is whistleblowing or who is like pointing out something like, hey, this is not okay, there are times where people are just met with opposition because, again, the people who are in power in these situations, or not even people who are in power in these situations, but people in general who get a feed off of that drama and whatnot, they would take advantage of that situation. They would take all their negative projections that they are guilty of and put it onto, they would accuse the actual victim of said thing. Now when I spoke up about my feelings, and again, I'm the type of person where it's like, I have a problem, I like to address it. Again, my delivery is not the greatest, but people would provoke a reaction out of me and see, there, she reacted aggressively. She reacted in that manner. Therefore, we're going to put all the blame on her and stuff like that. And this has made me suicidal. You know, it made me go into psych wards like multiple times, by the way, because I felt like the very thing that I loved and I cared about, which at the time back then was dancing, was taken away from me because I spoke up. Keep in mind, my producer, Rio, has experienced the same thing. He's experienced the same thing when it comes to these cliquey girls in these communities, right? These are anons that would go on these boards, lolcow and whatnot, right? They would proclaim that, oh yeah, like I'm defending an abuser when they are the ones who are being abusive. They are the one who created that situation because they provoked it out of him. Now, you know, as far as the thing when it comes to me and my producer, I'm not going to go in depth about that because it's like I already talked about that in my previous stream, but it's like, it's very easy. It's very, very easy to come up with lies, to come up with rumors, to come up with slander, and just be like, oh, this person is an abuser. This person's narcissistic. This person's this person's that. And when someone reacts out of line, reacts in adherence to that accusation, right? then that gives them more ammo to be like, oh yeah, see what I mean? Like, they did it up. When it's like, you're not understanding the full scope of like why they behave that way in the first place, why they're like that. You know, there's nuance, there's like layers to all these things. And not only that, it's just like you're hurting people by spreading gossip. So honestly, who's the real monster here? I think the real monster are these types of people who would go like, you're so much of a coward that you won't even tell these people up to their face, right? What kind of issues that you have with them, and you just go behind the scenes, either with your friends and whatnot. Get all your friends all together, compile all your friends together, and like target like individuals and whatnot. Honestly, who's the monster here? Who's the abuser here? I'd say in these scenarios, all right, like. These people gain like some sort of satisfaction or success by trampling over other people, and it's like, you're gonna listen to these types of people. They're only strong because they're forming numbers. But watch, when their fake friends start turning against them, or turning against each other. Like I can already see it happen. Like your fake friendships are not gonna last. They're just not. They're just simply not gonna last, because all of your structure, I say all your structure of what a friendship is based off superficialities. You know? So I just can't. I guess like I'll just never understand as to why people don't take into critical assessment, which is going into my next point, critical assessment of, you know, people in general. Just like pay attention. Don't believe in everything that you read on the internet. Don't believe in everything that you see. Even my points could be like negated and stuff like that if you have like tangible evidence and proof and stuff like that. You know, if you have something to say, have the balls, back it up. Why don't you come over to my house and like come over here? Let's grab a cup of tea. All right, say it to their face. Sorry. I'm getting a little bit New Yorker-ish. I'm just really fed up. I'm just really fed up with cliquey girls. I wouldn't even say cliquey girls, because these people, they could be guy or girl. It doesn't really matter. But like, I'm really tired of hive mind mentality. I'm actually really sick of it. I'm really sick of people who put up the front and be like, oh yeah, I'm nice, I'm caring, I actually care and love about. No, you don't. You care about, you just don't. You just only care about your image. That's pretty much, I already talked about that. Anyway, to close this off, critical assessment. All right, performing arts in general have a lot of ego, which is understandable, but personally, I don't believe it's the healthiest to aim for that. People should prioritize psychological well-being first. Do your own research on spotting covert emotional abuse. At least that's what I recommend people should do. You know, because again, these things you can't see with a naked eye. You know, it's very easy to fall pity and fall prey into like other people's stories and other people's narratives and stuff like that. But I think it's very important to just maintain some tact, be objective, look at things from all other sides. There's always multiple sides to every story, you know. And there are times where I'm wrong too. You know, we're all human, and we're all human, and we're all human, and that doesn't give any leeway for people to, you know, misuse that power over others and whatnot. Some questions that I'd like to ask for people is, what do you consider stagnation, and what do you consider growth? These are things that I believe, again, you should speak out in the open with each other. No anon boards. I mean, you can go on anon and talk about it, I guess, but like, engage with the community, like really talk to one another, get to know one another. You know, what does the community actually want out of being an overseas idol? That's something that you should also, not you should, you know, every time I say you should, like, again, recommendations, like, just introspect that. I think people should implement stricter standards and develop a zero tolerance policy. Don't hold off until last minute and be like, oh, well, if they do it again, then I'm gonna put my foot. No. If they can't be reasoned with, omit them entirely. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And people are going to, if you can't just, sit down and just be like, hey, you should, fix that. I don't like how you did da-da-da-da. They're only going to hold you guys back and hold the community back. All right? So, really put your foot down and see the red flags ahead of time. I know that sometimes it can be difficult for people to, really see, this ahead of time, but, I'm really serious. Please, try to do your research on spotting covert emotional abuse. Maintain objectivity. And just try to be more, rational, level-headed when dealing with these situations. I know that sometimes, I can get a little manic, too. Again, we're all human and whatnot, but, those things are just really, really important. Exercise caution whenever anyone makes claims, positive or negative, pertaining to others or events themselves. All right? And then finally, don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you started from. Don't allow, if you're ever trying to build, and this is any type of performer, if you're ever trying to build a platform for yourself or a name for yourself, don't let the admiration from other people and your, would I even say fame? Some of us we're not even famous. I'm not famous, but don't let it don't let it get in over your head. All right? We all started from somewhere. All right? We all crawled out of somewhere, okay? Don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you started from. Don't let this stuff get in over your head. I know I did. So, yeah. And, you know what? If people don't like what I said, that's fine. I'm not responsible for how others people think about me, how they feel about me. That's on you, and that's totally fine. If we don't click, that is okay. That is kosher. All right? But don't come in and drag me into your mouth and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put no. We're done. All right? We should. I know that I've done things that I'm not proud of, but I want to move on. And I'm okay with my choices. I'm okay that I've done my best to make the best decision with me, what I was handling with the information that I was presented with at the time. Of course I fucked up. We all do, but I'm not just gonna be like, oh yeah, no one's perfect. I'm human and make mistakes. I mean, yes, we're all humans and we all make mistakes, but again, just I'm done. That's it. I'm old Grandpappy Coolian. Come sit on Pappy Coolian. Actually, don't sit on my lap because my thighs are fucking blasted from dancing. Ow. Yeah. Let me read the comments here. I remember and I could not hate cancel culture more. It's not justice. It's a weapon for sociopaths. Yeah. I think there's one thing when it comes to calling people out on things, and holding people accountable. This person did da da da. I don't like that they did da da da. Versus being like, oh yeah, let's all get all these people and target them and stop it, get some help. I think Julie smells like a napkin. Have you came up to me and smelled me? That's the real question though. Snossage, whatever your name is. Did you come here and smell me? I don't know. I kind of smell like apples. My signature scent is DK and YB Delicious or Bath and Body Works Beautiful Day. Those are my signature smells. I smell like an apple. So I don't know if you ever came to me and you smelled me and like, I don't think I smell like a napkin. What does a napkin smell like? Hold on, wait, I got a napkin right here. Wait. Doesn't even smell like anything. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, any questions, comments, concerns before I go? Oh yeah, by the way, every single time when I have like a group meeting with like anyone, I'm always like, any questions, comments, concerns before I go? And then they don't say it. And then the times where people want to start up drama, they'll be like, oh, why didn't you do... I'm like, I asked you beforehand if you had any questions, comments, concerns beforehand, but you didn't. You know who I am, Julie. I know who you are, that I know I am. You are you and I'm me. Heh. Did you actually come up to me and think that I smell like a napkin? No, I don't know who you are. And even if I did, I don't care. Alright? Why do you have to, like, that, see, that's the thing. Like, why do you have to go on Anon? Why do you have to go, like, on an alternative handle? This is what I mean. Just come into the light. It's fun here. I like the sun. It's bright. It's sunny. It's great. Well, it's not really that great. I don't know. Overall, that's it. That's all I have to say about this topic. Again, I'm sorry that it ran. I mean, like, you know, I always apologize, like, all the time that it's very, very long. But again, like, I get that people don't have the patience to, like, sit through all that, and that's totally fine. But I think it's important to look at things in depth. You do, I swear. Again, even if I know you, I don't care. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm honestly, like, okay, TBH, like, I'm honestly, like, so detached from humans. Like, I'm not even just saying this as in, like, teehee, like, I'm being edgy. Like, I'm so detached from everyone and everything. Like, I really am. It's like, whoever you are behind that handle, like, it honestly doesn't matter to me. So, like, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? If you got something that you really want to talk to me about, contact@julie.live if you need to email me. Contact@julie.live if you want to email me. With your real name. If not, the only time I respond to Anons is like here on stream. If you're not an Anon, you're responding to me in my, if you're trying to DM me or trying to, see, this is why I maintain boundaries, right? Because like Anon tried to get in touch with me like via DM. I'm like, no. Now it's like, if you really need to contact me, just real name, all right, formal email. Take the time, write a formal email to contact@julie.live. You want to know why I switched to the old school like email format and not like DMs and stuff like that? Is because when you're writing an email, you're actually sitting and you're taking the time to write a thoughtful response. Like back in the days, maybe I'm like a little old school and whatnot, but like back in the days when people were like responding to each other, they didn't have like instant messaging and stuff like that. If they had to write a letter, they would like write the letter and be like, "Dear my sweetheart," and then they would tie it on the pigeon, and then the pigeon would go, well, not the pigeon, but you know, the snail mail, right? That's how my parents connected, right? They took the time to really write out like a thoughtful, heartfelt message, right? Like they put care and consideration into their words. Nowadays, everything's so fast food, instantaneous, where it's like, oh, let me go on my DMs and like quickly hit up this person. Like sometimes there are like people who like hit me up and be like, hi. No context, just be like, hi. I'm not gonna respond to you. I'm not gonna respond. You're gonna be like, yeah. What are you here for? Like, give me your purpose. Why are you here? What do you want? What do you need? Be specific. Be honest. Tell me. What is that? Revival of Overseas Idol as community needs a grand leader, an idol Genghis Khan or Napoleon. I want to revive. I want to like revive my own community. I want to like create my own like different, because I'm branching off of like Overseas Idol stuff. Like I want to do like I mean, like, I'm still gonna do J-pop, but I'm not gonna use the overseas idol, like, hashtag. I'm not gonna, like, promote as an overseas idol. I'm just gonna just stick to promoting as, like, a Big Apple idol. I know I said before that I wanted to, like, you know, be part of, like, the overseas idol community and whatnot, but I just, and this is no offense to anyone, I just feel like I've kind of outgrown that, you know? I want to learn from like other people and like other walks of life. Like, I want to go out into like New York City and like learn from multiple different musicians and just learn from, like, I want them to teach me so I can build like my own brand and my own like identity of like how I want to perform and whatnot. Like, at least like that's my vision. I want to eventually, like, I know that I have like 2 original songs, but I didn't even have, because I'm poor, and I can't like afford a mixer at the time. I want to really get to the point where like I have enough money so I can pay a mixer to put out those 2 songs. I probably those 2 original songs I'm probably gonna put out on SoundCloud as a demo reel. And then after that, I wouldn't even say after that, but like after that, I really want to consider maybe quite possibly working on an EP of just like original like English music, and whatnot. But first, I'm just kind of in training mode. So while I'm in training mode, I'm gonna have to resort back to doing covers again. So I'm gonna be doing like, I mean, like else. I'm gonna try, like, it's more covers, like, practice-wise for me, before, like, if I ever make, like, a comeback or whatnot, because, oh my god, these people really try, like, I was questioning my whole identity, like, these people made me really want to quit being an idol, like, I'm not even kidding, like, all these bullies and stuff like that really made me want to quit being an idol. They really want to make me kill myself, like, I can't tell you, like, multiple times, they're just, like, thinking, like, imagine the thing that you loved and you cared about is, like, stripped away because, like, people just want to, whatever. But my point is that like I'm studying Tagalog, I'm studying Korean, so obviously you can kind of tie in as far as what my goals are. Like, I want to cover like Korean pop and like Filipino pop as well, but you know, I just want to build like a separate thing away from the overseas idol community and whatnot. But I was gonna make you sketty. I don't like sketty. You were gonna make me sketty? Why don't you contact me at contact@julie.live? Then you can talk about making me sketty and then feeding me. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. What is that? What is that meme of that pumpkin? What is that? Give me the butter. Nom nom. Give me the salt. No, I don't want that. I really am hungry. I mean, like, going on a spiritual path, like, or, like, going through a spiritual awakening, I had to fast a lot. Like, I still fast a lot. I'm like, wow, this is like what Jesus felt like. 40 days, 40 nights, fasting. No, I'm not even kidding. Like, I've been fasting because food, like I'm really poor, and then B, you know, I don't eat as much, and I try to eat, but like, oh my god, like I just get like drained. Like I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive, so I get like drained really easily, and having like energy, like even having energy to like do this, it takes a lot out of me. Alright, give me a break. Come on. Yeah. Thanks for the stream, Grandma Julianne. It's Pappy Coolian! Pappy Coolian! I'm a grandpappy. I'm a grandpappy. Alright, okay, I'm done fooling around. Like, I feel much better now that I got that off my chest. Now, if anyone wants to talk to me about it, again, contact at Julie.live. I'm gonna be like, contact at Julia.live. If you really want to contact. That is if I'm ever gonna respond. Like, if it's a proper email. If not, I'm like, I don't care. I'm done with it. Goodbye. All right. Chapter's closed. like, that's the truth, alright? What I say is the truth, nothing but the truth. Alright? So don't come here and spin me this narrative and be like, oh yeah, we're all happy, friendly. Like, no, we're not. Alright? Some of us, we're not really on good terms. I try to be on good terms, but not many people like me, so it's okay. I'm not for everyone. I don't need your approval. I don't need see, this is my problem. Like, I talk to myself a lot. I'm just very much a loner. You know, I'm just, like, I'm not even saying, like, teehee, I'm not like, hashtag, I'm not like other girls, but it's just, like, it's very, isolating and alienating that it's, like, I don't, like, talk to many people. Like, I talk to myself, like, majority of the time. Like, I'm, like, there, like, I'm talking to, hi, wall. Ooh, I see this little dent in the, hello, wall. You know, just little things, just like little things that keep me grounded in this insane cesspool of a shitstorm that we're living in, you know? Yeah. Alright, anyway. Have a good night. Have a good night. And if you don't want to have a good night, you want to have a bad night, that's fine too. Your emotions are valid like salad. Alright? I'm not gonna sit here and tell you can't cry. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Alright? So, hasta la vista, baby, goo goo gaga. Alright, goodbye. Goodbye. Get good.